welcome to episode 125 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. We're using the magazine Zap 64 as a monthly guide for the games to focus on, but we are in no way affiliated with Zap 64 itself. This week, we start our look at June 1989 and the first batch of games reviewed in issue 50 of Zap 64, along with what was also going on in the UK singles and albums chart that month. Graham, the games are getting scarce, but are they getting better? Inform us.
In this diggy-loo, diggy-lay of an episode where we explore the private and disturbing somnambulism of soft drink addicts, we stumble our way through another arcade conversion calamity, this time in the rotationally obtuse Forgotten Worlds, head to the Windy Apple, or is it Sink City, for a game of winner takes nothing in the dull Las Vegas casino, and grab our combat pants, hobnail boots, and green t-shirts for another frantic waggle-based run and jump in Para Assault Course. Seems that sleepwalking and indeed sleep singing is a key symptom of carbonated liquid dependence. Who would have thought that? While we lower the sugary dose, we head to the skies and the ground as we take our grey battle vehicles into the grey world of grey base relief for some grey on grey action in the very grey Xenon. Get a bunch of weird, nearly brand 80s musicians and singers to form bands and go on high-res and dreary tours and gigs in Rockstar Ate My Hamster before finally popping in a time machine, nipping to our local shop at the time, grabbing a pack of Chewits for 10p, and then heading to Japan to smash everything to pieces on an egg hunt in the Muncher. The games are thinning out, so statistically the chances of getting good or great games must be increasing, right? Oh, no.
That was Zapped to the Past for July 1989.
You enjoyed it. I don't know about getting better. I think they're getting less frequent. This is actually good, though, because that means that if we work out the averages, and you're a maths, I know you like your maths and stuff like that, but if you think about it, if you shrink the pool of games, then the game quality actually could increase, right? Because there's less games. You know, we've seen a lot of games, crap quality. Now we're going to see less games. That might mean the quality games are going to be
the only ones that are left.
Statistically, that means there might be more frequent. If you were going to plot a chart, it would probably tell you something about that particular mathematical equation.
Yeah, I mean, it could.
I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know what that means.
I do like math, but I'm not a mathematician either. I just play around the edges like, I don't know, like a top of a bell curve. Should we look at the cover?
Yes. I suppose
we must
that's
look at the cover. It is the start of a new month. It is the cover time.
Yeah, issue 50. Wow.
Issue 50. £1.60.
Is that going up?
It says, "Lummy, sir, is this the best Zap mega tape yet?" No, I didn't try it. Was it good? Did you try it?
It's got zigzag on it. I haven't tried. I've got all the mega tapes or whatever they call
try
it.
them at some point.
Zigzag the remix. Was it always mega tape? Don't.
Probably not. I think it was just a Zap. I don't know. Quite cover tape on it. I don't know.
Yeah, cover tapes. Adding mega to things is kind of a weird thing to do, but it was a very 80s thing to do.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, yes, no, I don't think I've played it. At this point, by the way, I'd stopped buying Zap at this point back in the 80s, so this was it. So these are all new Zaps for me.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. I think 51, 52, I think 53 maybe was my. That was my limit.
That was my limit.
Yeah, 51 Zaps was my limit. Woo. Along with 13 Schnitzel Grubers. So the cover, it is Zap 64 Amiga. It is Speedball. It's no ordinary ball game.
It's not. It's an odd thing.
Handball.
Speedball. Yeah, that is. No, I haven't watched Rollerball, the film Rollerball, but I'm guessing that's got to be an influence on Speedball at some level, right? Either that or Battlestar Galactica. So
well, there was that classic old C64 game, Rocket Ball, wasn't there? That was That was Rollerball.
Yes.
That was great. That was. We should have looked at that. I might bring that back at some point. I'm bringing back Rocket Ball. So Speedball is the cover. Good cover, actually.
Yes, actually, yeah. It's. We're getting back to the kind of. I'm noticing that we've got an Ollie Frey teeth thing.
He does like his teeth.
He does growly kind of face teeth. But they are really good in that, I have to say. And it reminds me, when I look at this, I think Speedball, but I'm also thinking like, what's it called? The Games Workshop game that was all kind of
Blood Bowl.
This kind of thing. Blood Bowl. I get the kind of Blood Bowl vibe of it. It's like a bloody sports game involving people in sort of helmets and things.
Helmets and spikes and smashing into each other and very rounded groinal pieces.
Yeah. Well, yes, you might have seen that. I didn't go that far, but yeah. But yeah, it is very kinetic. We always know Ollie Frey does kinetic very well. So
yeah. So it's two guys in various opposite teams smashing into each other in pursuit of a silver orb, the speedball, I guess.
They are angry face twins, though. So
just copy and paste that. Enhance 147.
But it is kinetic. There's a nice outreach of the ball, like you say there. It is pretty. The movement on it's really good. I do like it. It's one of the best covers we've had in ages, isn't it?
Whoever
really?
did the that cover for Bomb Fusion we played the other week sort of thing should have had a look at this and how to do perspective of how to reach a hand out.
Yeah, learn to draw. And I can't draw, so I'm learning from this as we go.
Just look at this and then go, oh, that's how you do it. Yeah, that is exactly how you do it.
And this had a mega tape on it as well, which means that there's a huge chunk of the front which you would never have seen as well.
No. Unless it did, and then it says, oi, where's my cassette?
Well, yeah, but normally they have they kind of build around that, don't they? This one, actually, for the first time, I think, is a cover that is just there in spite of the cassette. So the cassette would just sit on that as opposed to leaving a big yellow gap for it or something like that, which is what they kind of did before this. So I like this cover a lot. The only thing I don't like is where it says demos of Phobia, and then underneath that it says Martin Walker's music. It's like, kind of taking away from everyone else that made that game really a bit there, aren't you?
I think it's just some Martin Walker music is on the tape. I think it's just a demo. So I think it's the demos of Phobia and Martin Walker's music. I think separate things, but it could be wrong.
The best Zap mega tape yet, is it?
I don't know. What have they had so far? They had one. I don't know.
I'm not sure what number they're up to with this one, but
I think it's only the third, isn't it?
I don't know, maybe 3, 4, I don't know, but best one yet? I don't know, really? With Phobia on? Phobia ain't that good.
Don't know. There's also a mention of Forgotten Worlds. It's a bit lost, that text there, isn't it? And Power Drone. red text on Ollie Frey's red outline, red background. Yeah. That's lost a bit as well.
Yeah, white on white, red on red, yellow on yellow. Things have gone wrong. Things have gone badly wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, those 3 bits are really quite lost, aren't they? Speedball, Power Drone, and Forgotten World.
Yes, but unfortunately, yes.
But yeah, it's a good cover.
Yeah, it's one of the best ones we've had in ages. It's kinetic, it's got angry teeth, all the incumbent parts of a cover that I like. It's good.
Yeah, man twins in spikes, things we like.
Man twins, turtle shell backs, all good.
all good. And shiny helmets. Should we move along? Should we move along and get in some games now we've done the cover?
Yeah, I think it's time.
Let's do it. Let's get in some games then. Let's do our first one. And our first one is, what was a gold medal on the Amiga is a mere 3 Mile Island on the C64. I mean a Sizzler.
It's a Sizzler only.
It's a Sizzler only, yes.
It only sizzles on the 64.
It'll be sizzling for hours. Yes, it is those worlds that have been forgotten, or forgotten worlds to you and I. It's another arcade conversion from US Gold, from the original arcade title, which was made by Capcom in 1988.
No.
It's another
they don't have a good track
release.
Record with them. They don't have a good track record. Conversions, bad. Capcom conversions.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, so it's another big arcade release ran on Capcom's CPS-1 arcade system board, which, according to the wiki on it, had a 68,000 Motorola processor running at 10 megahertz, a secondary Zilog Z80 chip running at 3.579 megahertz.
Wow.
And it also had 2 CPS Super Chip co-processors. I don't know what they were. Super Chip co-processors.
Sneaky.
Yeah, and for sound, it had a Yamaha YM2151 chip and an OKI 6295 chip.
Oh, didn't they all, though?
Oki. Won't you ever learn?
Phil Oki chip.
Phil Oki chip. That'd be great if it was. Why does it keep playing Don't You Want Me? Every time we put some music in. Don't understand.
Take that Oki chip out. It just keeps doing the same song over and over again. I don't know why.
That and Electric Dreams. It won't stop having them. That's it. That's my Phil Oki knowledge.
Oki knowledge expired.
Absolutely, I just run out. I need more megahertz. It could have 4,096 on-screen colours, up to 256 sprites per scan line.
That's a lot of sprites per scan line.
That's what it says. And it also had a shit ton of RAM. I couldn't work it out in the thing. It's just a lot. There's a lot of RAM going on.
It had Molar RAM.
Molar RAM, all the RAM, Bobby RAM.
Kaliva, all the RAM, Molar RAM.
Simon RAM, loads of them across multiple boards. Another beast of a machine. And so obviously should be no problem to port down to the humble C64, I'm guessing. Anyway, this port was handled by Arc Developments, code by Richard Underhill, visuals by Paul Walker, and music, such as it is, by Mark Cooksey. So just a sort of point of interest, I played the Easy Flash Cart version of this. That's the one I got hold of. I did try the disc version as well. So on that version, I found the loading was a little slow. Not terrible, but a bit slow. But I also had it just freeze on me at the end of level 1.
Yes.
So it just didn't progress. So I just went back to playing the cart version, which didn't do that. So, so that's what I was playing. So I'm not really going to mention much of the loading because I was playing it off the cartridge. So there you go. Anyway, after all that, there's got to be a story to this, right? Right.
I hope so.
Emperor Bios, the god of destruction, has begotten 8 evil gods who were destroying all known civilization. Destroyed cities turned into dust ruins and became known as Forgotten World. But the spirit of people's angry minds created 2 super warriors to fight back against the evil demons and rescue the world back from Bios. Their task is awesome, for Emperor Bios is protected by 3 demigods, including the Golden Dragon, the God of War, and the Paramecium.
Cool. Isn't the Golden Dragon a Chinese restaurant?
It's just around the corner. They do really good crispy chicken.
Chicken balls, yeah.
Yeah, and the paramecium, isn't that something on your body?
It's that bit between your ass crack and your elbow.
The road to Grimsby, as they call it. It's in the meaning of life, the road to Grimsby. What this all entails is you and a buddy, if you have one, traversing a number of side-scrolling levels, shooting anything that comes at you, basically. Yes, this is a horizontal scrolling shooter to all intents and purposes, but instead of a ship, you control one of the super warriors. According to the instructions, the forgotten worlds you'll pass through are the Cityscape, which takes up the first 2 levels, and finally sees you facing off against a single-colour anus spewing rubbish at you. At least that's what it looked like to me. Dust World is up next, where you finally go up against the Dust Dragon. High Tech is the next world, which has you blasting stuff until you reach the God of War. And only blasting his shoulder will lead to victory.
Weird.
It's very odd, isn't it? What can we have that's like Achilles' heel? We'll have the God of War shoulder. That's catchy.
Painful shoulder, yeah.
It's like,
a twingy shoulder.
Right on my shoulder. My weak point. It's where I was held when I was dipped in the pond.
Massive impingement.
Finally, you take your assault to the God's domain, which is above the clouds, and finally sees you face off against Bios. And if you kill him, you complete the game. Well done, way. As you shoot certain enemies, they will drop coins, and this is currency in the game, and that currency is called Zenny. It is a stupid name for currency, one of the worst I've heard. You'll want to collect this Zenny, though, because throughout the levels, shops will appear, and if you fly into them, you are greeted by a smiling woman in an off-the-shoulder dress for some reason, and you'll be able to spend your precious Zenny, on such things as homing missiles, lasers, napalm bombs, burners, V-cannons, armor, multi-directional fire, and finally boosters to increase your weapon's power. Or at least that's what the instructions say. Because in-game, when you go into a shop, you got 6 blurry icons to decipher and a 7th at the bottom, which gives you a totally useless tip.
Very accurate description, actually, that.
Yeah, there's no text to tell you what they are, just a cost. No. So good luck with working out what each one is. Good luck.
Nope.
Because they're not even in the same place as the ones in the arcade. Look at the arcade. And the arcade only has 6 as well, and the tip. I don't know where they've got 8 from in the instructions. I don't know what's happened.
The sound of that. 6 and the tip. Ooh, no.
At the end of the interstitial levels, and with some of the bosses, you will be attacked by a stack of sprites that look like a stein of beer, a cog, a compass, the drawing circles kind, a plate, and a shape of some description that might be trophy, but I'm not sure. They were weird, those bits. It's just a stack of objects. Yes. They just appear, and they're just there. They don't even really attack you. They just kind of fall over. I don't know what that bit was.
Strange.
Because I couldn't see it in the arcade version when I looked at that. But, what are these? Why am I being attacked by a stein and a compass? It's very odd. The enemies that attack you are a combination of monsters and craft and giant squids, finally.
Yay.
And turrets and all the usual stuff you might see in a late 80s horizontally scrolling shooter. It's just stuff. It's big stuff, small stuff, little stuff. Just shoot everything. Comes from the back, comes from the front. Just shoot everything. The graphics themselves in the C64 version vary in quality. The interstitial screens with the odd bit of really weird dialogue, which is just taken from the arcade game. So this is one of those early kind of badly translated from Japanese into English sort of lines of lines of text. They're very well drawn versions of the arcade images, and it is good to see them here. So it's nice to see all those all those parts from the arcade sort of making a show here, sort of thing. So when you do collect something, there's a nice bit. And some of the bosses, the giant anus is a bit rubbish, but the big dragon's pretty good. And the God of War with his, his temperamental shoulder is pretty decent as well. They obviously do like the definition of the arcade game, though, but, it is what it is. In the game, we've got a couple of nicely drawn, rotationally animated player sprites. They're quite well drawn and they're quite nicely animated. And I imagine they looked a bit, not blocky, but, you could see it. But I could imagine back in the late 80s on a CRT, that CRT blurring would have made them actually look pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
So I think there's some, they are pretty decent. And so most of the enemies suffer from the same. In Clearo Vision, not so great, but with CRT smear, they'd be fine. The bosses themselves are suitably big and well grown, but I did notice there's quite a lot of flickering going on at times, especially in the bosses, and not much of them is actually animated. They do that thing where there's a lot of graphic, but about one part of it, the only one part of it is actually animated or doing anything. But, they're decent approximations of the arcade game ones, I guess. They've tried, and they're pretty decent. The backgrounds are a weird mix of multi and single colour designs. They're very odd, the backgrounds. Like at the bottom, it's all multicolour, but then in the main upper part, lots of single colour stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird. And so some of the bosses like that, like I said, that big anus thing, it's just single colours. It's a weird combo. It does all, however, they're okay. The scrolling's smooth, throughout, and it works well with 2 players on screen. I think there isn't really much any slowdown, just a bit of flicker. Although it does all feel a little sedate compared to the madness of the arcade. There's not as much going on, which is to be expected, but there you go. There's also a lack of music throughout. There's a really limp piece of music when the game first loads, and then there's nothing beyond that. Not that I heard, anyway. And the sound effects had nothing to particularly write home about either. So, with all that, it must play, sounds good. You're shooting stuff, you're going left to right, loads of stuff, arcade bits. It must play amazingly to get that 93%, right? No.
Right.
The controls are stupid.
Uh-oh.
There's no other word to describe them. So in the arcade, you kind of got an Ikari Warriors dual stick type control system. So you can move fly your character around the screen, but you can fire in, I think, loads of different, 16 different things on the arcade, but whatever. You can, so essentially it's like a dual stick sort of control system. So you can move and shoot in different directions. And that kind of works in that sort of sense of what you do in the arcade. In trying to replicate that on the C64, they've made it so that holding down or pressing fire whilst moving left or right rotates you counterclockwise or clockwise a 45-degree step. What that means is that moving around the screen and trying to shoot ends up with just firing literally anywhere but in the direction you actually want to shoot.
Stupid.
It's just annoying. Because essentially you've got to kind of forget about the x-axis and just move up and down. Just use the y-axis. Place yourself in a place on the screen and use the y-axis. And facing the direction you're going. And that's just keep shooting. Just move up and down. Try not to tap left or right while you're firing, because you'll suddenly be firing sort of top left or bottom, top right or bottom right. And it's just so annoying. I don't understand why they've done this. For my thought, they would have been better off taking out the rotational shooting altogether, or just having you be able to flip left and right with a space bar or something. It's borderline unplayable because of it, as far as I'm concerned. What good is it when you need to collect some Zenny in the middle of the screen? Because it doesn't last for long as well. The Zenny just appears on the screen and it's gone quite quickly. You've got to go grab it. As you're moving towards it, enemies are coming on, so you start shooting and you're just spinning, endlessly spinning, instead of firing in the direction you're facing. It just doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't play very well, and it's very frustrating and annoying. So the arcade had a load more space to play in and 2 ways to control movement and a direction of fire. The C64 doesn't. So it should have just done away with it. It should have just got rid. There's also, weirdly, a control matrix grid in the instructions, and it shows that the C64 and Amiga version, and I think the Amstrad and Speccy version, have no smart bomb either, but the Atari ST and IBM PCs do. So weird. There's like features missing, but in the other ones, I don't know why it's not in the Amiga one. How weird that is. It's a strange conversion, this. There's some really nice visual presentation around the edges, and there's some good in-game graphics. But as soon as you start playing it and trying to control it, it just all falls to pieces. We had similar problems with the official port of Sidearms, I seem to remember as well. I think that did something similar where we couldn't...
we did.
We were flicking back left all over the place. You're trying to... And we didn't like that either. Just stop doing this. And then we played that other one, Zybex, and did it much better. Just took it out. You've got to look at the machine you're porting to and go, and this wasn't back in the days where we were expecting arcade perfect. I think if they'd have just left this as just shooting to the right, and maybe you could flip to the left, with a space bar
just to flip or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have worked much better. As it is, no, it's chaotic to control. It's way too chaotic to control. It just makes the whole thing not worth playing. Well, at least for me, I couldn't get on with it. I got quite far into it, as much as I could, but I was fighting the controls constantly all the time, and I just found that these are worlds that just need forgetting, as far as I'm concerned. So that was my take on it. What about you, Graham? How did you find your time in the Forgotten Worlds?
Yeah, well, very, very similar, actually. I mean, I thought it had a really nice look and feel. Right from the get-go. I mean, I know there's loading and things like that. I also played the CRT version and the disc version. And I have to say, I thought it captured an arcade, which is something we've not seen really done very well, where it kind of captured the interstitial bits and it just had a kind of an arcade feel, and the graphics were an 8-bit version of that. And I thought, okay, you're leaning on the arcade. We've not got the greatest graphic chip in the world, but what we've got is, you've kind of maximized what you've got there. Fine. And I thought even the sound, it was a bit basic, but it was passable. That part of it, okay. I expected a C64 version of an arcade, and that's kind of what I got at this point. So I thought the graphics in the game, again, good. Some really nice backgrounds. The shading was nice and the detail was nice on some of those. It had those parts. That part of it was quite good. And there's a lot to it in terms of the kind of the look and feel. They're quite detailed in the arcade. So to capture that in 8-bit is going to always be a challenge, but they did quite well with that. I thought the enemy sprites were okay. But we're sort of, if we chart the sort of graph of, the expectation, I've started quite not high because I didn't. Forgotten Worlds wasn't an arcade I spent a lot of time with, nor was it an arcade conversion I was particularly bothered about either. But they sort of set their benchmark pretty high. Good graphics, good interstitials, nice title screen. The music was okay, and then it starts to sort of head downhill. So the enemy sprites okay, they're not amazing. Your sprite okay, it's not amazing, and then the big problem steps in, doesn't it? The stupid controls. So the control system is just a stupid pain in the ass. There's no other way around it. That's what it is. I found myself just rotating round, shooting in the wrong direction. When I finally got to grips with it, when I finally thought I'd got to grips with it, I actually hadn't. And I just changed position. I'm suddenly shooting at a weird angle. Then I'm thinking, why am I shooting at that angle? Like you say, the best thing to do is just get yourself to a position where you're shooting to the right like a standard shooter and just go up and down.
Yeah.
But you can only do that for so long. The enemy sprites are quite targeted, so they know the bullets do fly straight towards you, and they're actually quite hard to avoid because the system of the game is designed around you being able to shoot 360, so the enemies attack you in kind of a crazy way, but you can't control it properly, so you don't have the controls to be able to tackle that. That's a massive problem, which makes it too easy to go wrong. All of a sudden you'll find yourself shooting, rotating, you're not in the right place, you're not doing the right thing, you are not controlling the game. These games live and die. We've said this so many times, but I'm going to say it again. These games live and die by their controls. If you can't control the one sprite and the shooting that you have properly, then you may as well not bother. You know what? I mean, even at its most basic, Defender, such as we didn't like it, Defender, but if we go back to the C64 best version of Defender, which is Drop Zone, you've got that kind of two-way shooting over a landscape, and you've got that kind of paradigm. Forgotten Worlds, add 360 shooting to that. It's unnecessary. So Forgotten Worlds has an unnecessary component, necessary because they had to convert the arcade, unnecessary because it makes the game relatively uncontrollable. And now I'd really tried to persevere with it because I thought the graphics are nice. I want to try and get the best out of this, but the control system ends up fighting you all the damn time. It's not something you can get used to. It's not something you can get better at. You're just better off trying to stick to it in one position, but accidentally you'll change it. So you'll be shooting, turn it into a standard shoot 'em up, and then you'll try not to be that. You're just shooting up, and then all of a sudden you'll change position. And you're like, oh my God, why have I done that? And it's because the controls are working against you. And then you think, oh, why did I bother? Now, the big question for me is how this achieved 93% and a sizzler.
I don't know.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it's good enough to be that. This has so many control problems that I can't get my head. I mean, you could fall for the looks maybe, and maybe it would get 80 because of the looks, maybe. But this game is not controllable on the long term. I don't know how you would achieve to completion this game. I don't get it, because I think at some point you're going to make a mistake and you're not going to be able to control it. I mean, I spent a lot of the time just going round in circles. So I turn to the right, press the fire button to shoot, rotate. I'm like, I don't want to rotate. I need to just shoot.
Yeah,
it's so frustrating, and it very quickly led me to the off switch. So that it was $9.99, whatever, 93% though, or whatever. I never played the Amiga version as far as I remember, but the C64 version, 93%. I can't get my head around that. I don't believe it is that good. You're talking 7% off. Perfect. Sorry, no way, nowhere near. This, if I was being really honest, I would be giving this in around the 50s and 60s. I'd give it a good chunk for the graphics because they aren't a bad job. The multi-load is slow, but this game has control problems in a game that cannot afford them. So go and give it a go. By all means, as people who do, follow along with the podcast and they play the games that we play, go and play it, see what you think. But I'm pretty sure that control system is going to do your head in within a short space of time, because it certainly did mine. So sorry, Forgotten Worlds, but I'm trying to forget you.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that reading the Zapped review, there's three. It obviously gets 3 pages. It gets a big old review, and there's 3 comments. There's all of them commenting on it. The only person that commented is Katie. Says something about the controls, but the quote is here: "And you don't have to mess about with the sort of awkward controls which made sidearms."
But you do.
You do. None of the others mentioned the controls. The controls in this are rubbish. The controls break it, and I don't know why that isn't even mentioned. It's just weird, because it's the first thing you would sort of say. Like in presentation, you'd go, "Well, it looks nice, but where would you put the controls? You can't control it. You can't. Pain in the ass." So, but hey ho, there you go. That's Forgotten Worlds. Looks nice, but but it is what it is. Just as an addendum, just to so we can comment on it, in Japan, Games Machine listed Forgotten Worlds on their September 1st, 1988 issue as being the second most successful table arcade unit of the month. Second. Outperforming titles like Sky Soldiers and Ninja Spirit.
Okay. I don't remember much about it in the arcade, but I can imagine it's one of those ones that would get some attention. It's not an arcade that's not without its merit, but... Yeah,
there we go. That's Forgotten Worlds. Let's move along. Still got a couple of games before we go to a break, and let's move into our next one. And Graham, that next one is over to you, because it's time for you to head on out to America and go down the Las Vegas casino.
Casinos. And Las Vegas is a special place for that, because that's where they all are. There's casinos and there's gambling everywhere in Las Vegas. You ever been to Las Vegas?
I have not.
Everywhere you go, there's gambling machines. Even at the airport, even the place where you wait to pick up your car. If you hire a car, there's gambling machines right there.
Gambling machines in your car?
Yeah, there's gambling machines if you go to a bar, there's gambling machines on the bar. They're actually on the bar itself, on the bar top while you wait.
Lord.
They're everywhere. So this is published by Zeppelin Games. So, they're quite, they've produced quite a few things, haven't they, Zem? So,
yeah, been pretty
coded
good.
by Kevin Franklin. Well, he did Draconis and Zybex. So, okay. Graphics, Michael Owens. He did Draconis and Zybex. Pretty good. Musician, Adam Gilmore. He did Draconis and Zybex as well. Ooh. So it's by the people that made Draconis and Zybex, and probably others. It's a gambling game, obviously, with a name like Las Vegas Casino. The opening title screen is some lively, if a touch melancholic, and perhaps dare I say, even Euro-poppy music, which I quite liked on the title screen. We'll come back to that in a bit, though. You can choose from 4 popular Las Vegas casino games here: Blackjack, Baccarat, Roulette, and Craps. And I tell you what, by the time you've played the first 3, you'll want to go for a crap. I'm just saying.
It's true.
You start all of these things with $250, and into the gambling world you will head. Your joystick controls a little hand icon up and down to select the various games at this point on the screen, because obviously there's a screen where you can choose them. Press fire, and into the games you go. Well, deal with them one at a time. So Blackjack. When you start, this is more lively and, dare I say, good but badly misplaced music, because none of the music from this point fits this game in the slightest. Not that the opening title music does really either. The display shows columns with thousands, hundreds, tens, and units, which is almost akin to being at kind of, junior school, but hey-ho.
It's like an abacus.
It is. And so you use the joystick to go up and down to increase your stake in the appropriate column. That's how you and that's actually pretty much replete through the whole game. That's how you decide it for the whole game. So this is how you bet, essentially. So you do that. Then you see a view of the cards at the top with the dealer underneath. Pretty perfunctory graphics that say, that it looks like a dealer guy, but there's, and cards. But at this point, you kind of like, they're graphics for graphics' sake. They're not terrible, but, there's not a lot of shading or fancy stuff. They are what they are. So underneath that, you'll see your stake, the cards in your choice, which is, at this point, you can hit or stand. It's his standard blackjack rules. The idea of blackjack is to get to 21 before the dealer, and whatever card combo that may be. You can get to a certain point. You can obviously choose to hit and take another card. If this takes you over 21, you are bust. If you are not, then you can get up to 21 and, you can stick. And then, of course, it's dependent on whether you're going to beat the dealer at this point. So if you do beat the dealer, you win. If you don't, you lose. Pretty straightforward stuff, really. And if you keep losing, it's game over. and you'll lose all your money. Rubbish that. And it's back to the start you go. Baccarat's slightly weirder. It's the same selection of stake mechanic though. So you choose, tens, hundreds and units kind of in a stack. Weirdly different music again, which would have probably been good for a sci-fi shooting game, but not for this at all. You choose your stake and then you go, this time you sort of bet on a player with yes or no. So you're actually choosing whether you're going to choose you or the dealer to win. And then the cards are flashed up and the rules of Baccarat are applied, which I think is I can't remember the rules of Baccarat actually off the top of my head.
No one can.
They're not particularly complicated. I think you have to score a certain number. I think it's number 9. I can't remember if it's 9 or whatever it is. But anyway, there's the rules of Baccarat. You can go and find that. I think you have to score combos of number 9. But if you don't, you lose. And if you lose your money. If you win, you win. Great. Bit confusing though, that game, the way it worked. There's roulette as well. Now, the roulette was a small roulette wheel on the left and a roulette board table on the right.
It's weird, isn't it?
And there's numbers, colours and choices that you can choose. You choose your odds with up or down, which is odd. An odd way of choosing roulette, but that's kind of the reality of what you're doing. But it sort of takes it down to a real weird gambling mechanic level. So it's like choose your odds. You're like, I don't know if I want to do it that way. I like the idea of not choosing my odds, but anyway. But you choose your odds up and down, and then you use the joystick to move the chip onto the choices that are available for those odds. Seems really unintuitive to do it that way.
Massively yeah, I hated it.
Yeah.
Stupid.
And it didn't feel like you're sort of moving this dot around the board, and the board's quite small, by the way. So the roulette wheel's quite small on the left, the board's quite small on the right. You can't really read what's going on. The idea of roulette, of course, is that there's a wheel with a series of numbers on that are in black and red. And the wheel is spun and the ball is rolled in there. And then the ball obviously tick goes round. When it lands in a particular black or red number, you could have voted on whether you voted. You could have bet on whether you wanted black or red or the number or range of numbers and there's a whole bunch of different bets that you could do. Yeah. Hence the odds part. So that's kind of how roulette works. But when you're selecting that when you're actually gambling, there's a huge table in front of you. You can just slide your chips onto the sort of, you can put it on the cross point of 4 numbers, or you can put it in a sort of group of 6, and you can, it's how you want to work it. You don't really get that here. And that is a big problem because kind of roulette is kind of hinged upon how you manage your bets and working the odds to your advantage, because you can spread your bets across a roulette board. So you can have a little bit here and a little bit over there and a little bit, I'm going to bet so much on this and so much on that. And you can do that, but it just doesn't feel here like it really means much. And by the way, when you win stuff, it's such an underplay. It's not like you get a big, you've won, woohoo. It's like, you won, great. Yeah, move on. So it's almost like, mechanical gambling. It's kind of a bit crappy in that way. So the unintuitive controls don't help here. You same selection screen for the stake, which also doesn't make sense really at this point. So it sort of leans back into that. But you also have to hit the space bar to start the spin, which is odd because all the way through it's been joystick control. And it also starts the spin with the ball in it, which is totally wrong because that's not how roulette works. The ball, you spin the wheel and then you roll the ball in.
Roll the ball in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not doing that, you're not doing roulette. And that's actually, that there are very specific rules around how you gamble. Of all the sort of things that you could make a game out of, especially Vegas gaming, it is absolutely hinged upon the mechanics and the rules of how those things play out. So you can't vary them. You can't say, oh, you know what? Let's use a different kind of card deck for a goof. Let's put the ball in with the roulette and spin it. You can't do that because that's not roulette. That's some other variation of whatever, spin the ball. But that is not how roulette works. And so fundamentally, that's broken, really. And then when you get to craps, again, you select a stake and then you play craps. I'm not really much idea of what you have to do. I found the instructions for this, but in all fairness, they're a bit confusing. And by the time I'd got to craps, I was kind of bored of playing these games, really. So, okay, it's a budget game, all right? It's a 4-in-1 gambling game, fine. Musically, I suppose it's interesting, but none of the music suits the game at all. The graphics are pretty basic for what they are, although there is an attempt at least of some kind of game styling. So there's a thematic consistency, I guess you'd call it. But it lacks pretty much every conceivable feeling, tone, and relationship or anything to do with Las Vegas, which is kind of important for a gambling machine and gambling game. I mean, there's other than the name and the fact that you might encounter games like this in a casino, there is absolutely nothing here to do with Las Vegas. Nothing. And that's, for me, that's a big problem. Having been to Las Vegas and knowing how crazy they are about this stuff. So make a game that's just call it what it is, a casino, because there's nothing to do with Vegas at all, nothing. So, and apart from anything else, I have to say these games hold absolutely no interest for me at all. I don't really like gambling. I'm a rubbish gambler. I always lose. I never do it. So for most people, especially gamblers, this is going to hold no interest. I don't know. Do you get the endorphin hit from winning virtual money that has absolutely no value? We've said it so many times before. Maybe there's a market for this. I don't get where the thrill is in it, but when you're winning literally no money, because the whole point of gambling is that you win money, and the idea is that you think you're winning money even though you're losing money. But for some people, and that's a particularly cool thing. I don't get this. But then again, there's an entire industry set up on these kind of virtual gambling games, so there must be something in it. But in those that I know that exist currently, you do stand a chance of winning real money, I think. Anyway, you don't win real money in this, of course, you just win nothing. And I think that does massively affect the thematic association with anything to do with gambling, really, or Las Vegas as well. It's an odd-sounding anomaly, this. Bit of a blip, I think, for Zeppelin, who've up to this point had quite a good track record with stuff. So this one's a kind of I don't know what happened and why they made this in any race anyway, because it doesn't feel like it's anything that they would have normally produced. It feels like this is one of the first things they made that was in some cupboard somewhere, and someone went, "Oh, just release it." And I hope it isn't, because that's kind of a problem we had with these budget games. This was $2.99. And I hope it isn't that, but it's not very entertaining, this, and it's certainly nothing to do with Las Vegas. It got 34% in Zap. I think I would argue for a game of this type, that's even generous by their counts, because this isn't a great gambling game, but you might have found more solace in it, did you?
No. I mean, just to sort of say that these guys, Kevin Franklin, Michael Owens, Adam Gilmore, their last game was that Jockey Wilson's darts challenge, so it reminded me of that. Yeah,
it's soulless, but it's not gambling.
No, but what I mean is, like, it's kind of a weird way of doing, like, they had that weird way of doing the darts, and the presentation was similar sort of style is what I mean. Not gambling, no, but no, I've said it before, I've said it again. I don't get these games. I don't. Virtual gambling is pointless. Just pointless and empty. It's an empty, way more empty than the real thing. I mean, at least with the real thing, you've got the tangible possibility of winning something real. But, here it's just it's a simulacrum of a series of boring games. Presented, albeit quite nicely. They're okay. The thematic is okay, although the roulette is confusing as hell, and so much of the screen is taken up by the text on the bottom. It's just ridiculous. And craps is just a confusing mass of things on the right hand side. But if you know what you're doing, I suppose you're looking. The easiest one to play on this is obviously blackjack, 'cause it's dead simple, isn't it? Everyone knows how to play that. But this quickly tires, like all these games do. They just do it. It's just boring. There's no thing to it. I also found the input system confusing. Especially as you noted on the roulette, which is stupid, having to pick the odds and then put where you're doing something. It's like, let me just play something where I want it and you work it out. Obviously, they didn't know how to do it, so they've kind of confused you into, if you're betting on these odds, then we know you're doing that, so it's whatever it is. And it's not very player-friendly. Just in general, it's not. I didn't like the up and down, the abacus style, putting in the money and things. I didn't get on with this in any way, shape, or form. The end screen, though, is one of the most depressing screens I've seen since Andy Capp. And maybe that was the point of this, I guess. I don't know. The house always wins, and you'll just be left sitting on a doorstep with your head in your hands. But yeah, it's kind of a weird, really weird end screen where it's just this kind of silhouette of someone. I think there's someone getting drunk in the background, but it's like, I was clearly either late at night, but I think it's sort of, early morning. You've been out all night and now you've lost all your money and you're just head in your hands on a doorstep somewhere. Really, really depressing. Did you think the ending screen was quite depressing when you lost all your money? And you just it's like bleak. Dawn. It's like dawn. You just sat on a doorstep. It's like weird, isn't it?
It's like bleak.
Yeah, really
it's
bleak.
Easy to do as well. It can happen really quickly in this game.
Yeah. But I did think, maybe that was the point. I don't know, but whatever. The game, though, it's just pointless. It's as pointless as all these gambling games are. Every single one we've played, from the one with dubious eyes and stuff and what have you, for every single one of these has been crap. And so 34% now. They're just pointless. Just go and play a bloody fruit machine at the time if you want to do that.
I agree. Not a bad idea.
But there you go. No, I didn't get on with this. And I knew I wouldn't, but I didn't. So there you go. Las Vegas Casino. Nope. Las Vegas Casino. No. There you go.
Very good. Let's
move on. We've still got one game this part, so let's get to that. And it's another budget one. Another one. If the recent rubbish slew of combat school knockoffs have not put you off this type of game by now, then Zeppelin Games are back. Here they are again in a Zeppelin double bill to give you one more go at running an obstacle course through the power of Waggle. This is Para Assault Course from Zeppelin, and would have set you back, as I said, £2.99 or whatever your local equivalent if it was available in your area. The design here is by Brian Jobling, coding by Jamie Irvine and Peter Goldsmith, and music once again by Adam Gilmore. First impressions are interesting, with a loading screen that looks like our Para has had enough. and he's jumping over a wall to run away over the yonder hills in the background. That's what I thought anyway. I was like, I've had enough. I'm done. I'm off. Bye. Running away. It's okay, though. It's well drawn, I guess, but it's a strange one to do. And the game loads. We get another good tune by Mr. Gilmore. You know, is another to add to the decent bits of music he's composed. Again, not sure it really fits the game, but it's pretty decent. He does some decent tunes, Mr. Gilmore does. I quite like him. It's nice filtering on it, and it's a good Sid tune. Not mind-blowing, but good still. The title screen itself is quite nice, with a chunky game logo at the top, and then a series of screens underneath that showing the credits, the start game options, of which there are 3, I think, but I can't remember if I've actually noted them down, and the high scores for the 4 courses that are in the game. There's more than one course in this, there are 4. Again, it's good, well done, and really does show some of these bigger games how to do a decent front end. So, you know, put a bit of effort into your front, you know, the menu screens. It's nice, it looks good. Some of these full price ones are just rubbish. Fire in Port 2 is for a single player game, and Fire in Port 1 is for a 2-player split screen game. There you go. Pressing Fire takes us to some options. You can only control these options though with a joystick in Port 2, no matter who presses it on the first one. And there are some options here, so we can run and there's plenty of options actually. We can run a competitive game, we can practice one of the obstacles, or see a preview of any one of the 4 courses. I'll start with preview, because essentially preview will just scroll all the way across a course so you can see what is coming up. Handy little thing that is. I'm not sure if we've seen that in something else. I seem to remember we did see something kind of similar in something else, but I can't remember what it was. Because the courses have a number of obstacles in them, and so these are climbing walls, water jumps, ramps, log jumps, monkey bars, thin wall, barbed wire crawl, death slide, and underwater tunnel. Now, if you select practice, what that does is it lets you pick any of those, and you can actually just do a short course just with one of those elements to allow you to get used to how it works and what you need to do to overcome it. This is a really good feature to have in the game, and coupled with the preview mode, lets you get ready for the 4 courses that make up the competitive mode. So you can just work your way through those. So you work out how to jump over walls, you work out how to do the underwater tunnel, the ramps, the log jumps, because some take different speeds and things like that. And that's quite a nice way to sort of gain familiarity with the obstacles that you are going to be faced with. So competitive mode, selecting this mode lets you pick one of the 4 courses and whether you wish to try it in easy, medium or hard mode, which I think it affects the amount of time, I think. It also affects something else, and I'll come to that in a little bit. Once that's done, you're into the game. So if you pick 2-player, then the game is a split screen with player 1 at the top and player 2 at the bottom. If you just picked a single player, though, it's just to say you only get the same amount of screen space and you're just at the top. That's something that could have been done better, I think, but it is what it is. I've just turned off player 2 at the bottom. In the middle of the screen, we have the UI, which tells you it's got sort of details for each player. So it's player 1 and player 2. So it's got your present power for each player, so how much you're waggling, and the time counting upwards for each player. So control is simple. You've got you waggle constantly. So it's just a proper waggler. It's all waggling. You're just constantly waggling, and you press fire to jump over the various obstacles or jump onto them or whatever. So it's waggle and jump, and that's pretty much it. And now it's worth doing the practice mode, as obstacles come pretty thick and fast, and there's only a certain amount of time to complete the course. I seem to fail at 2 minutes 40 seconds every time, so I'm guessing that's how long you have, which is 160 seconds, but that's what it is. But actually failing some obstacles like the log jumps and underwater swim, they're instant game over. Just game over, you're done. It's like, just put you back on. Like some of them, if you fall, like don't manage some of the water jumps, it just sort of scrolls forward and puts you back up. But some of them, if you fail them, it's just game over, done. So that's why I said you need to know what to do with each obstacle. And it's also game over in the practice mode as well. So you got to get good at them. The graphics in game are okay. The main sprite is decent enough. It's got one of those high-res overlays. It's coloured a little bit outside the lines, though. I think it's sort of character coloured. I'm not quite sure. But it's okay. And the backgrounds, they're pretty well drawn and shaded. So, there's lots of tyres and obstacles and just buildings in the background. It's fine. I'll come to what this is like in a minute. If you play in medium mode, though, play at medium difficulty, this makes the course take place at sunset. Any of the 4 courses take place at sunset. And on hard, it makes them at night. And the graphics are drawn slightly differently for each one, so it makes things harder to see. So I thought this was quite a nice touch. Doesn't make it so much difficult. I'm not sure if it lowers the time, because the time was all over the place in this, because I kept saying failing at certain objects, so it's hard to know how much time you've got. It didn't tell you. but actually making the obstacles harder to see because it's a time of day. I thought that was quite an interesting way of sort of introducing difficulty. So you kind of have to learn the courses a bit more. The main issue, though, with this game, obviously it's a waggle-a-thon, so get used to that. The main issue I had is with the inconsistent controls. Now, I found sometimes they worked as you think they will, and sometimes they just didn't. And the narrow window, because you basically got not even maybe a third of the screen that you're running along, even in single player, means at times you're jumping with no view of what is beneath you because the screen scrolls upwards to keep you central, but you lose the floor and you lose obstacles. And what I found is this usually happens on the logs. So you jump on the first log, and what you've got to keep doing is keep waggling and just keep pressing fire, and you jump from one to the next. But they're not quite spaced as far as you're going to jump, so you kind of have to sort of balance them. But the problem is that you go higher and higher, and eventually you jump so high that the logs go off the bottom of the screen because they start to drop downwards, and then you've no idea where you're coming down on. And usually I would just end up in the middle, and it would be game over. And that's very annoying. So I think they could have been better off doing the single player mode with full screen to allow you to so it didn't have to scroll. So it allowed you to actually see where you had to sort of go. 2-player, fair enough, but 1-player. And also as well, just roll it forward. Don't kill you on certain objects. That's really punitive and too hard and just makes it annoying. Now, it's 4 of these courses with different layouts, and some of the obstacles are different. Like coming back to the inconsistency of controls, trying to do the monkey bars sometimes, you basically got to jump and then just keep waggling. But I'm waggling like hell, and sometimes you'll move, and sometimes you won't. It'll be hanging there, and so you slow down, and it'll just drop off, and it's game over. You're like, you go back. That puts you back before the monkey bars. There's an inconsistency to the penalties that you get for each obstacle, which is one of the failings of this game. Now, if all this sounds more like something else other than Combat School, well, that's because it is. Because this is a Kickstart knockoff with Combat School trousers on, essentially. Yeah. This is not a Combat School game. Yeah. It's Kickstart. And if you think about it in a Kickstart style, we've not had many Kickstart knockoffs. It's not terrible. It's just not a patch on Kickstart. But, it's a bit different style of Kickstart. Like I said, it has some nice features like the practice and preview options, which for a budget game, I think are really kind of impressive. Even for a full-price game, that would be impressive. It's let down, though, as we've said time and time again, by its slightly unreliable controls. But, for £3, I can't complain too much. It's £3. You're getting £3 to a thing. I mean, the thing with Kickstart is its controls were rock solid. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew how fast you could go on certain places. And with Kickstart 2 especially, that ball was raised. And so we've not seen many takes on that kind of Kickstart genre. And here we have a kind of weird somewhere in the middle of Combat Schools opening, assault course mode, and all those crappy ones we've seen recently, like 19 and that Combat Arena or whatever it was, or Assault. No, what was it? What was that one we saw the other month? What was it with a crap name? Armored Assault Arena or something, whatever it was. I can't complain too much. I wish it wasn't all waggle. I wish there was a better control system. I wish there was maybe a little more skill involved and they'd pulled the view back a bit. And all these things would have made the game work a hell of a lot better. But, it's not terrible. What did it get? It got 60% I think that's probably about right for what's here. But maybe a bit because of the controls are a bit just not quite as tight as you'd want them to be, and there's not a consistency in the penalties for each object. But if you want a Combat School Kickstart type thing, I don't think there's any others like this, but it is what it is. It's not £3, whatever. What did you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it had an okay title screen, and that's kind of familiar to their kind of games. Okay, good stirring music. I'll give it that. It sounded the part in its own kind of way. But waggle games do my bloody head in. Mm-hmm. And this was a lot of waggling. I mean, goodness me, when you went to practice to try all the different events, and there's plenty of them, don't get me wrong, but they're all basically the same bloody event. No, waggle, 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 run up the ramp. Waggle, 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 jump. And the jumping was a pain because if you hit the wall, it bounced you back and you're like, oh, it's so bloody annoying. And just like the way these games play out, this game in particular, but, it's akin to the other games of this type. The Combat Schools and the, God dare I say, the one that we played last time. So 19 and all the rest of it. It's not as bad as that, but but it's this kind of thing. Maybe in 2-player there's something to these, but in 1-player I found it pretty boring, and the events very samey. The graphics were okay, I'll give it that. They're much better than any of the previous attempts at this kind of game. For this kind of, and it is one bit of Combat School, so it's not the whole game, is it? It's just like the
one
first bit,
for like 4 courses.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of like that, I suppose. The difference with this is like it doesn't have it's a much faster pace because you're waggling. You're not doing that with Kickstart, and there's Kickstart is ramps and different things to jump over and do all of that. This is just, the bits I played. And when you do get to the game itself, it's just a mishmash of stuff. And the waggling's such a pain. It's just, and it's not like it's easy waggling. It's really, you have to really go at it to get it somewhere. You can sort of start it off and then it suddenly drops out. And it's got that frustrating thing about the speed of this. I don't know. Maybe there's a 2-player version of this that's fun for some people that like waggling games. I don't know. I just find it really frustrating. And I actually have to say, the whole thing just felt completely mindless and dull. Like, what are you training for? What's it all for? So I didn't like it. I thought,
that's what it's
even
good
at
for.
£3, well, maybe, but at £3, okay, I get it. It's a cheap version of games that have been a lot more expensive. But Combat School kind of did this already. And it wasn't great, but it kind of did more events and it did it. So this is kind of a very cheap also ran, but it doesn't have enough of the stuff to make it interesting or good. Aside from that, though, I suppose the thing you can say about this is it is reasonably well put together. It does work consistently. I mean, look at that thing we played last time. What was it called?
That's what I'm trying to think. Something, Assault Arena one or Assault.
It was called Action Service, is what it was.
That's the one. Stupid name. That's why I can't remember it. It's so,
I don't know why, because it's
nondescript.
bland. So this is a lot. All I'm trying to say is this is a lot better than that, because it wouldn't be hard to be better than that. But the problem is that it's just a bit mindless. But maybe there's some fun to be had. The events are all basically the same. Run, jump over stuff, run, clamber over things, run up a ramp, run. It's just waggle more or less, and jump now and again. But it's a bit mindless. But maybe £3 of mindless passable. 67%. All right, I'll give it that. Okay, but I wouldn't go back to it.
No, I wouldn't go back to it either. There you go. Pirate Assault Course. That's our final one for this part. There's only 6 games this week, by the way, just to sort of let you know. But so we're going to go away. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. And when we are going to be looking at music that was released in the UK, albums and singles for June 1989. So please do stick around. And we're back. Let's waste no time. Number 1 singles for June 1989, Graham. For the first 2 weeks of June, we were Sealed with a Kiss by Jason Donovan.
I don't want him to seal anything with a kiss for me, thanks. No. It's a lot right now. I did a bit of digging.
Dig away.
So Sealed with a Kiss is a song written and composed by Peter Udell and Gary Geld. And the original recording of Sealed with a Kiss was by The Four Voices, which was released in May 1960. We can put a link to that in the show notes. It first became a hit, however, because that wasn't a hit, in 1962 by Brian Hyland. Now, this was common back then, that somebody would write a song and it would be released by one artist, then it would just be released by loads of other artists. It doesn't happen at all now. It never happened. In fact, they go to court to make sure it doesn't. But back then, you could, I like that song, I'm releasing it. No, it happened a lot back then. So it was also performed and released by Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I'm not sure I like the sound of them. But that was in 1967. Then Bobby Vinton released one.
Good old
1972. Same song, pretty much exactly the same arrangement. And then, of course, we had in 1964 The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And I think that borrows probably quite a lot from this song, if you think about the way it sort of sounds. But then, that leads on to Sealed with a Kiss with Jason Donovan. In the video, he starts off by walking to a campfire and looking quite, angst-ridden and so maybe so dreamy for those that liked him. I thought this was a really f***ing dreary song and it deserves to be so, and it probably would be. I think it was finally. All those great versions of this song. The cover, by the way, of the Brian Hyland one, he looks very intense.
He looks very intense compared to the cover of the Jason Donovan one, where he looks like he's it looks like he's forgotten something. Yeah,
and he's been smoothed. The smoothing of the 80s on this is where Photoshop has launched itself upon the world here.
I think the computer that smoothed him blew up. There's no way that's one render.
No, pre-Botox. Pre-Botox smoothing in the 80s is outrageous. I mean, Jason Donovan is how old at this point? 30-something, maybe?
I don't think he's that old.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's older than he looks. Yeah, totally.
Oh, has he got the Ralph Macchio gene?
Well, I don't know about Ralph Macchio. He's just got Photoshop on his side, hasn't he? We could all look bloody 18 when with Photoshop on our side.
Look what they did to Indiana Jones recently.
Exactly. Don't. Anyway, it's a really dreary song and not the only version of it, so go and look at the other versions because they're better anyway. The Bobby Vinton one's quite good, so.
It's Bobby. Good old Bobby. For the final 2 weeks, we were Back to Life, However Do You Want Me by Soul to Soul.
Yeah.
Back to life.
Yeah. I didn't realise till I did a bit of digging, good old whosampled.com, that Soul to Soul's Back to Life is actually a sample of Graham's Central Station's The Jam. Now, you could argue that it's not because it's just a drum beat, but it is that drum beat. Now that and it is that pattern, and it's played in exactly that way. So maybe it is that, I don't know. And they label it as that, but either way, and of course that drum beat became like the drum beat, didn't it? So
yeah, it was used in loads of things, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Onto our albums. Let's not talk any more about him, but for the first 2 weeks, 10 Good Reasons with Jason Donovan. I don't, like you put, there's no good reasons.
No, people bought it. They shouldn't have.
No. For the second week, for one more week, there was Flowers in the Dirt for Paul McCartney.
Wobble-headed Paul McCartney. We said last time his head nearly wobbles off during the recording of some of them songs.
It does. And finally, for the final week of the month is Batman, the official soundtrack by Prince. Now, is this a different thing to the Danny Elfman soundtrack?
So yes, it is. There's two soundtracks that came out.
Yeah.
There's the Prince soundtrack, which has got Bat Dance and Prince songs and a couple of songs that are in the film.
Yeah.
And then there's the Danny Elfman soundtrack.
Official score to the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think, because this is the Prince one, I don't think this is the soundtrack as in the music, as it were.
Because I listened to the Danny Elfman soundtrack a lot. So it was one of the few soundtracks that worked for me. I'm not a massive soundtrack thing. I like soundtracks in film, but I don't normally, especially classical pieces of music, they don't generally work for me. But Danny Elfman and the Batman soundtrack I really liked.
It's very good.
There's really good tunes in it, a really good piece of music. And I listened to that a lot, but I don't remember any Prince songs in it because I would have fast forwarded them.
Think Back Dance. Think the one when the Joker goes into the art museum, and that's a Prince song in there. I think might even be Back Dance, but anyway, I think that was the tone of it.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Back Dance, the single, in a bit. All right, let's get into the singles. 4th of June, Start As We Mean to Go On. In at number 2 is The Best of Me by Cliff Richard.
Is that the best of him, though?
I don't know. Well, I think you're very right, actually, in that at the beginning of this, there's a huge chunk of Save the Best for Last by Vanessa Williams.
Totally the same, isn't it?
It's almost verbatim. It's that tune is talking about people ripping off other tunes. It's almost the same.
And then Cliff Richard comes along and go, do. You can't do that.
No,
I'm just going to say this, I'd rather look at Vanessa Williams than Cliff Richard.
Yeah. What's he look like in this video, Graham? What does he look like at this point?
It's an inexplicable mass. It's non-Newtonian. If you just put your hand on it and lower it slowly, you're fine. If you whack that with a hammer, it just forms a shield. Like if you hit Custard, Custard does that. It's overtaking his head. And plus he's got so much pain face in that. Cliff Richard pain face is a thing, right?
Yeah.
He's got a lot of that in that video. He really does.
I thought he looked like he had a massive migraine for most of this.
Yes, yeah, that's his pain face. Yeah, it's like,
his pain face. Yeah, I also didn't understand why it started out in black and white, then went to sepia, and then went to colour.
No, I don't. Nobody knows that. Maybe he knows. That's his hair made that choice, not him.
Cliff Richards. Oh dear. In at number 12, we've spoken about this already. Back to Life, However Do You Want Me, Soul to Soul. That'll go up to number 1. And as I said, it always reminded me of Fear of a Black Cat. I'm just a human.
Yes, I'm just a human being.
Indeed. In at number 25 is The Only One by Transvision Vamp.
This is odd. I mean, I found a version of this where they did an appearance on Top of the Pops performing this. It's, I think, clearly more of a drive towards the Primitives kind of sound for them.
Yeah.
But she's just not vocally up to that standard. So it sort of you can hear it sort of trying to get there, and then it's like she kind of pulls it back to Transvision Vamp by having a very shouty chorus, like, I don't care. I can see all the musicians in the band going, oh, I like a stompy chorus, but we always end up going back there. But that was just what I thought.
Yeah. I also noticed as well in this Top of the Pops performance, she's incredibly oiled.
Yeah, she's greasy, isn't she? She's very greasy.
She's real greasy, Junior.
She's slick.
Jesus.
She is. I don't know. It's not. If that's sweat, then lights are too bright. If it's not, she was either ill or someone's thrown a bucket of bloody baby oil at her.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining on any count of that, but
I mean, I'm surprised the microphone didn't slip out of her hands, or
it did.
So oily.
Yes, she is very oily in that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that in like a creepy way. So it's the camera's up. She's just her skin is glistening. It's like
it is. She's glowing. Yes.
Yeah. Number 33 is Cruel Summer '89 by Bananarama.
This is horrible. It's really horrible.
You didn't like this, did you?
No, because they've latched onto a thing. So this is essentially a reproduction of their track, but done with that bloody ham-fisted kind of arrangement to make it sound a bit more like Paula Abdul's like, stroke Janet Jackson with a hint of Madonna in there. It tries to sound like that. It just utterly fails. Why? Because it's a Bananarama song. It was never designed for that.
Exactly.
It's just horrible that they did that. And by this point, Bananarama themselves, the artists involved, had completely given up. They didn't give a shit.
I can't imagine.
So, and you can tell. They're like, oh, just release it. We might make a few quid. Who cares?
Because Cruel Summer is one of their better tracks, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a good track, but not that version.
It's horrible. It didn't need redoing. It's perfectly okay all on its own. Leave it alone, Cruel Summer. It's got kind of melancholic to it.
Exactly. If I had my way, and I don't get my way very often, I would go back in time and I'd erase the orchestral hit sound for certain production teams. Because that's just that bam, bam, bam. Oh, horrible thing. No, rubbish.
In at number 37 is Green and Grey by New Model Army.
Kind of your thing, isn't it, that?
Yeah, another good track from them. I just look. I'm getting to really like his vocal stylings. I just like he's got an oomph to his vocals. He really gets going. And this is a big long song. It's like 6 minutes plus, and the more it goes, he builds this song. It's a really good song list. Really good. It's driving me more and more to pick up more of their stuff, and I'm enjoying what I'm hearing. There you go.
Okay.
In at number 50 is Superwoman by Karen White.
Just R&B MOR horror, this, isn't it, really? Spewing out from that R&B studio teat.
Yeah, probably.
The fountain.
You did like it for one reason, though.
Yes. Well, it mentions eggs, and that's always a good thing. No, if a song mentions, they mention breakfast eggs in this. And that shows you that, the lyrics do not match the R&B
vibe
thing. They don't. No, the vibe is R&B. It's kind of smooth. It's, yeah. How would you like your boiled eggs? It's like weird. It's really weird. But it's, it's in there, so I appreciate that.
At number 51 is Be With You by the Bangles. Yeah, it's not it's the drummer singing, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes, for the Bangles. This is clearly because someone's gone, she's always singing. Why is she always singing? Get someone else to sing. So they got someone else to sing. And then they went, that's why. Because she can sing and you can't, you cardboard cutout.
Play the drums. That's what you're good at.
Yeah. And one drum at one point. She's just hitting one drum. So it's not like she's a drummer. She's a drummie.
That's all you need. This video, though, I found quite interesting because it's typical concert footage video. All right. It's one of those where they're filmed on stage.
Yes.
But there's so many gratuitous arse shots.
There really is.
Loads. And I've thought it'd be an interesting sort of thing. I haven't done it, but I think it'd be an interesting comparison. If you compared this video shot for shot or something to see how this is filmed and framed and the band are presented to how you would compare it to something like Bon Jovi and all those other kind of metal rock bands that have all those kind of studio, all those kind of concert footage videos and how they're framed in their videos.
Oh, completely.
This just seems to be put the cameras behind them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's loads of
as much as you can
shots.
Put the cameras behind them or film from knee to neck.
Yeah. Was it, wet guy? Was he there? He's knee neck.
It could well have been.
MartyPello.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Cameras by Marty Pello. I just like to film the knee to the neck.
Yeah, I know. I watched it, and then I noticed that you'd obviously made the observation that you had in our notes, and so I rewatched it, thinking, actually, I'm going to take my mind out of the gutter and watch it a second time.
Yeah.
And totally, firstly, you can tell it was directed by a guy.
Probably.
And secondly, absolutely. Now, this is focusing on less about their faces, although there is the occasional Hoff's face, more about and less about their musicianship and playing. It's totally focused on legs and ass. There's no, that's massively. It. And it's terrible. It's bad. It's not a great song, but it's just terrible for that.
I think it's even worse than when you see things like by Vixen and things like that. They're bad as well, but I think the Bangles don't sort of come across like that. But it's like, just watching, I was like, just can I see the band?
Absolutely. Now, I also admired the fact that you inadvertently spelt Bon Jovi wrong and put Bon Jovi, which I think they should be. Bon Jovi et al. You're like Bon Jovi et al. By Joe. Bon Jovi et al. I like that. And that's what they should be. But no, in all seriousness, representation of women in these rock videos, terrible thing at this point. So
it's
bad.
Awful.
I must only watch it another 10 times to make sure it's terrible.
I'll take it off my favourites.
I will.
In at number 52 is Gate Crashing by Living in a Box.
Yeah,
God, this sounds really out of date. Very out of date at this point. It does.
I forgot what Living in a Box were even about, and then I listened to this and I'm like, oh God, now I remember. No.
I've sort of noticed that a lot of living. They do a lot of songs that seem to revolve around houses or living in something. So this has got a gate in it.
Yeah.
And I think I've been noticing it as their titles have gone along, like something about, because they started off with living in a box, didn't they? Living in a box by living in a box. And there's just loads of, I think, houses or house references. It's like, they're just obsessed with places of, where you live. Don't know. In at number 53 is I'm That Type of Guy by LL Cool J.
Not a fan.
I'm the type of guy. And I'm the kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. That's a good impression. I like to eat my sugar, especially, and that kind of thing. Like,
you're the type of guy who like, oh,
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on Brown Sauce's view of the old LL Cool J. I think he liked him, but I can't remember if he did or he didn't. But I don't remember him playing a lot of LL Cool J, although I do remember him talking about some LL Cool J stuff.
Yeah.
That's my barometer for all LL Cool J things is Gary. So
yeah, I knew a couple of people
I will have heard it.
School that liked him, I think, but not for me. In at number 58, License to Kill by Gladys Knight.
No pips.
No, just a knight this time. It's the
Gladys Knight.
It's the seedless version. It is a good Bond song, this.
It is really good.
Yeah, I don't see it get referenced that much as a Bond song as well. No one sort of goes, oh yeah, the License to Kill track is good. But it is very good. And it's also one of my favourite Bond films.
Yeah, you're a big fan of the old License to Kill, aren't you, Dalton?
Yeah, I do like License to Kill. It's just, it's Bond let loose. It's the first example of Bond gone off to do a revenge mission, hasn't he?
First. And I imagine Secret Service is kind of Bond on the loose, really.
Is it?
He gets revenge for his wife in that one, really, and stuff like that.
Doesn't that happen at the very end, though? She doesn't die until the very end.
Well, his wife dies at the end.
I suppose there's the bit at the beginning of For Your Eyes Only where he kills Blofeld.
Yeah, it's I agree with you. No,
but this film is entirely, you fed my friend to sharks. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, it is. I think it's Bond unleashed, and I think that's something we don't see very often. He does it there. There is a lot of fighting on a
He decompresses someone.
There is that.
In a decompression chamber, he pops someone.
I've always liked it. It's just a pity Dalton never got the opportunity to do more Bonds, really. What happened there, though?
Well, this was the last. There was about a 6-year gap between this and then the next one was GoldenEye, wasn't it?
Ah, right. Okay, so there was production worries.
Yeah. So I think there was I think either he didn't want to do it and they didn't know what to do with it. And I think they thought they'd sort of run out of ideas a bit. And then they came back and GoldenEye was the big return with what's his name?
That's always been the problem with Bond movies, wasn't it? That they felt they had to try and create a bridge between Roger Moore's Bond, which was camp, crazy, womanizing, stupid schlock,
by the end,
and modernizing it in some way. Thankfully, we got to the Bond we've got most recently, which is a Bond I really like in Casino more than most of the other films he did, I have to say, but I still like it. But I think this Bond was a really good bridging Bond. It's a pity that it led to the kind of Bond that it did, because I really liked Timothy Dalton. I like the Bond that came less afterwards, although I can sort of see Pierce Brosnan's... It is Pierce Brosnan, I thought, wasn't it? And I like Pierce Brosnan's Bond, but he was very Roger Moore. He was basically going back to Roger Moore, so they played it safe. It's only when they decided to take a chance and sort of go down a newer Bond route with the remake of, I say remake, but the relaunch of Casino, that you started to see a better, more classic style Bond. And I think the newer Bond plays it like Timothy Dalton would have.
I think so as well, because it's a bit more chunky and a bit more physical. There's a physicalness to him, whereas Pierce Brosnan is very much like early Roger Moore, that sort of suave, slim, tall.
Oh, it's stupid. And BMWs, I mean, come on. Bond is an Aston Martin guy, always has been, always will be. You give Pierce Brosnan BMWs, you're just stupid, and it's not the same thing. Get out of here.
There you go. We'll probably get to living in a box. No, what are we on about? License to Kill. We'll be getting living in a box
James
as well. License
Bond,
to Kill at some
living
point.
in a box.
And we'll discuss it then, because I'll probably watch it again. 11th of June, in at number 42 is Looking for a Love by Joyce Sims. That's a weird title, isn't it?
Looking for love.
No, it's Looking for a Love.
Yeah. Maybe it's a bit odd.
What's the A doing there?
I don't know.
Is it the start of a list and she just got bored? Looking for A, love, B, good times, C, huggable, D.
I don't know. It just sounds like loads of other early to mid-90s output. Derivative over the rhythmic bubble bass. Bullshit. Not for me.
Not for me either. Was number 50 for you though, Graham? This was Tears by Frankie Knuckles presents Satoshi Tomy.
It's a bit of a house classic, this. A bit of a legendary house track, so you have to be very careful. Say this house track in hushed tones.
Oh, okay.
Massive funk house, soul house classic. Hugely influential in terms of UK garage and loads more. It's a bit of a blinding track. It is good. But, that I'm not going to say any more about it in case I upset somebody, because it is very revered.
I'll take your word for it. In at number 56 is Satisfied by Richard Marx.
I don't like the name of that.
As you've rightly noted, his hair is taking over his head. And as you know, he's clearly aiming for part of the meatball gang. I've posted a picture there as proof.
Yeah, his hair is just... There's the meatball thing, isn't there? So, we've noticed it. I'd never noticed it before we did this podcast, but when we come to look at the music and we look at some of these bands, there is a definite meatball thing.
Fray Bentos meatballs.
Exactly. The hair is being replaced by, I think the actual people are being replaced by meatball people. His hair is just a mass, a meatball mass. And it doesn't move. It's like it's a solid mass. It's a face with hair attached. It's weird. It's very weird.
It's very odd.
I mean, you think about it, right? I was thinking about this. I was thinking, you know what? Maybe it worked in the music industry, but just, take that hairstyle and that kind of way the face is positioned, which is about 3 inches below the hair. So take the meatball hairdo, place that into horror movie context. Can you imagine, Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Leatherface, but he's actually meatball head? Or Hellraiser?
Well, it's what was that one with the thing that was on the back of the head? Is it Fiend Without a Face?
Fiend Without a Face, yeah. We've got but just meatballs. If you replace some of those,
without a face.
Jason Voorhees, a hockey mask on a meatball.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street's barbers.
Exactly. It's just weird. It's just, it kind of, and it's so much of it as well. It's everywhere. The meatballs have taken over. It's like the pods from that movie where the pods take over. It's pods, the pods.
The invasion of the pods.
Invasion of the meatball snatchers.
They called it the pods that took over the people.
That's what they are, pods. Bloody meatball pods.
It's been made on time. It's invasion of the body snatchers. For God's sake, man.
Yep, you're going to go to sleep tonight. When you're going to wake up halfway through the night, and then when you wake up, there's going to be a meatball version of you on the floor. Going.
To be fair, I mean, if you think about my hair in the late 80s or early 90s sort of thing, I was very close to succumbing to the meatball.
Are you sure you're not a meatball?
I grew out of it.
I'm absolutely certain I'm not. I have no hair. So
you have no hair, no.
I'm de-meatballed.
No, I'm just pure steak now.
But Gary, in the 80s and early 90s, he was meatball, wasn't he? We used to call it his afro, but he had a meatball. We didn't realise it now, but he'd been taken over. He was a pod. He was a pod person.
He'd been bald.
Exactly. Maybe he had. Explains his love of brown things, and especially brown sauce.
Let's move on quickly. Number 57 is Children of the Revolution by Baby Ford.
House again. Bit of acid house in there, bit of sample house. Like the KLF, only more Eskimos in Egypt. Probably all gibberish, really, that, but that's what it is.
Yeah, you're just saying words. You could be making all this rubbish up. I won't know. What you're not making up, though, is at number 63, as predicted by the Shaky, I Want to Have Some Fun by Samantha Fox.
Well, Shaky called it, but you called it last time. We knew. We know there's an association. There's a link between Samantha Fox's releases and Shakin' Stevens. We know. This is proof. We know. It was a theory before. This is bloody proof.
There you go.
We proved it in tests.
We spotted it. We did. Can't unspot it now.
You can't. And this is a particularly crap Sam Fox release.
Terrible. This is dreadful.
So bad. I mean, we asked her to stop like 3 songs ago, I think, maybe even more than that.
I can't believe she went on this long. I honestly can't believe they were still releasing singles.
To be fair, we're at number 63, and I don't think it's going to go much higher.
No, I don't think it is.
This is so dreadful. And I mean, it's leaning on the house sound, which she did in the last song, if you remember, which I think was called Sam in the House or something crap. It's trying to land a kind of quasi-Madonna vibe because it's got kind of her talking a lot. But also it's linking into a little bit of that kind of Buffalo stance, Nana Cherry's type vocal where she goes, what you like? So, that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of that in there. But she's essentially trying to rap, and I'm using that term very loosely, over Royal House's Girl, I'll House You. So it's did Girl, I'll House You. It's that in the background all the way through. So she's just sort of got, crap dancers, and they are crap, doing crappy shit with her dancing crappily with crapness going on. But I've tried to, I've tried to
You tried to be positive.
I've tried to reverse my thinking. I have, because I thought, you know what?
Credit. That's a credit to you. That is.
She's in the machine. The machine is plugged into like the Matrix. She's not fully in control. The Matrix is in control. What are the positives that have come out of this experience? And do watch the video, people who listen to the podcast. So firstly, you have to admire Sam Fox's commitment to denim in that video.
Double denim.
She's like denim to the max. I mean, there's denim shirt, there's denim trousers, I'm sure she's got denim the contact lenses in.
Denim pants, denim
pants.
Denim knickers.
She is fully denimed to the max.
Yep.
It's also curious that she changes to the sound of an American woman's voice halfway through.
Yeah,
so
it's curious.
I'm not sure why she does that, but it happens. We'll just go with it. Her dance moves are a clear demonstration of why denim was never the dancer's choice of clothing, as it goes.
The chafing.
She handles it pretty well. She smiles and she's laughing, but you know that those denim jeans are pinching in places that she doesn't want to be pinched. No. She had pinch marks. Her dedication, by the way, to the straight fringe, I guess you'd call it bowl cut, is admirable as well.
Yeah,
that fringe is so straight, right across the straightness of her face. But was it the Sam Fox do? I don't know. And also, did you notice, by the way, she's dancing on a drain cover throughout the whole of the video, which is dangerous. That is on the edge because that thing could go through at any time. She's going to be quite badly injured out of that, I know. And it's just like, of all the places you choose your lead dancer and singer to do a music video, it would not be on a drain cover, which it clearly is.
No.
And I suppose, penultimately, she dresses like a cross between Michael Jackson and an Undertaker's dummy at a certain point, which is, I suppose, interesting. I want to call it interesting. But the bad fashion choices show, in the majority, a strong penchant for obtuse, rubberized, fetish-style corsets and circulation-destroying pants. Because at one point, she's in pants that are shorts that are so tight that it's a wonder that her legs aren't blue because there's no blood in her. They just don't collapse. But that is niche. That's niche.
She's trying to make her legs look like denim.
You don't have to try that hard. I'm pretty sure her skin by now is denim. But like Shakey's, though, and I was thinking about this, is the denim link. Because we've said before that Shakin' Stevens was, all about the denim. We've said it before, he's the denim guy. We even said that his body is completely denim and he just, the flesh bits that you see are actually, that's just pink denim, which is probably the title of his last album, I hope. But Sam Fox is also pink denim, but she's the other side of pink denim. So maybe that's her fragrance. I don't know. But, either way.
Available at all good Asda's near you.
Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's my 2 pennies worth. Good old Sam Fox. Oh, maybe it's the last one. I hope it is, but we'll know because if there's another Shaky song, we'll know.
We'll know that there's a Sam Fox song coming down the line.
We will.
There you go. In at number 73 is One for the Mums, Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler.
No.
Because we had Beaches the other week, didn't we?
Beaches last week, yeah.
And finally, in at number 96, not finally, but this day, number 96, Better Days by Gun.
Not sure, they were a bit late to their own party, really, but
they were going for quite a while because I noticed, and I don't know if you remember this, but they had a big hit in 1994 with their cover of Word Up by Cameo, which is actually a pretty good cover, quite good. I like that ending bit where it's W-O-R. It's like, so it's a pretty decent cover. It is what it is of its time, but they were still going around by that time. They sort of jettisoned their sort of rocky looks and gone for a bit more. They reminded me a bit of that other band who
Wet.
No, not Knee Neck, who were big in America, but completely not big here as well.
U2?
No, they were like Nirvana, the sort of a British version. They did Swallow.
Feeder?
No, I can't remember that. It'll come to me. But that Gun, similar-ish. Anyway, 18th of June. Let's move along from Gun. Bat Dance in at number 3 by Prince.
There it is, yeah. The actual official Bat Dance.
What a weird track. It's so odd.
Weird. Yep. It's a track of 2 halves for a start.
It's a track of 12 twelfths.
Well, it's because the first half is a complete mad metal mix of God knows what, sample fusion. And the second half's a really funky, oversampled sort of, it's a funk track. And, James Brown kind of funk track. Yeah. So it's really strange. It's
from the moment that cuts into the Vicky Vale bit and it just goes sample madness.
Well, because the first half of it is sampled from the old Batman. And then the second half is sampled from the new Batman. I'm guessing there's some kind of, they're making some point about the transition from one thing to another. I didn't get it.
I didn't.
It doesn't work.
Because like those Joker and Batman dancers, they're just weird. They're just odd. And like they seem really, really kitsch and like a weird nod to the 60s style stuff, which at this point, I mean, if I was Tim Burton and probably having some control over the visual look of sort of stuff around that Batman film, that is not the video I would want. But like, what the hell is this? We've completely tried to jettison any kind of connection between the kitsch, camp 1960s Batman, which was the prevalent Batman still in people's heads by this point, and we've gone for this dark gothic noir look, and then they get this. It's so weird.
I think they have for Batman, but I think they struggled with the Joker character because the way that Jack Nicholson plays the Joker is still similar to the original Joker characters. Not as, silly, but it still has leanings that way. The colour scheme's the same. The purples and the greens is still very
the purples
much...
but that's from the comics, isn't it? So
Yeah, but he's still kind of leaning... That's what I mean. He's nothing like the comic Joker. He's very much like the Joker from the 60s TV series.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think Batman isn't completely... He's a completely different Batman.
Yeah, and the whole look of the film is really dark and...
Yeah, it is, but you'd never get that from this, and I think that's where I think they're meant to be this interplay with it, but it doesn't come across that way. It's not a great song, and of course later, we get the much better version of Joker with a kind of okay Batman, but the much better version of Joker is obviously in
Heath Ledger's.
What do you call it? In Heath Ledger's Joker. So
yeah, Dark Knight. Hi, number 5 is "All I Want Is You" by U2.
That's probably the best U2 track we've heard in a while. Soft Rattle and Hum in it. It's not bad, actually, that one.
Yeah, I thought this was quite good. It sounds like classic U2 to my ears.
Yes, yeah. It's more like U2 that you remember than the pretentious, stupid. I'm going to sing with Placido Domingo, and while I'm singing, I'm going to hold an egg.
and go, lemon, a lot.
Yeah.
And at number 27 is Atomic City by Holly Johnson.
It's a very funky track, I have to say. Yeah. Very funky, but not my thing.
Nah, not one of my particular favourites of that album. Number 35, though, is Fight the Power by Public Enemy.
Fight the Power that beat. Yeah, the Bram Saucer was heavily into this. I didn't realise it had such a tie-in with Spike Lee and around Do the Right Thing. It's not a film, and he's not a director I follow massively, I have to say, and that's just because I'm not necessarily into that kind of stuff. I'm not saying they're a bad director, because I'm sure he's amazing. But
he's a very good director.
But I'm just not quite into that kind of, at least at this point, not into those kind of films. But this is a good track by Public Enemy. My knowledge of this, I thought this was the seminal Public Enemy song. I thought this was, when I think of Public Enemy, someone says Public Enemy, I think of Fight the Power. It's just whenever if I'm discussing it, one I will always think of. I think of the album that came before this is their big thing, but this is the track that came out later.
Right.
So
okay, I don't know whether it was because of it being linked to Do the Right Thing, but I just remember Fight the Power.
It got a lot of airplay. In all fairness, this did get a lot more airplay than some of the straight out of Compton and all that stuff that they did and all. Yeah,
Gary would know more than we would, but just from my point of view, it's just that. But I would say though, in this video, that Flavor Flav's clocks are just off the chart in this video.
Well, he went crazy with it. He did go crazy with that, and because Gary modelled his clothing and his clocks on Flavor Flav for a while, he used to come around and he was always wearing the clocks, wasn't he?
He was massive. He was massively clocked up.
Yeah. Well, he had that picture of Big Ben which he wore for about a month in that frame, that picture frame, which was weird because he didn't even tell the time. It was just a picture of. We tried to, educate him, but he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't have it. He said it's right twice a day, and I suppose he's right technically, but it was weird.
Yeah, and he wore that Big Ben mask. Really odd trying to talk to him.
That pointy hat. Yeah, he had that as well. Yeah,
just really weird. In at number 41 is Grandpa's Party by Moni Love.
Yeah, hip house stuff. Not for me, this, but very, people like Moni Love for its hip house vibes.
Number 71 was One by the Bee Gees. I found this very dull.
It is a remake of Jive Talking. It's slowed down, but it sounds like Jive Talking by then. Which is fair enough. They wrote that, so they can do what they want with it. But
they can do. Yeah, I don't blame them, but it's dull. 25th June, and at number 13 is Breakthrough by Queen.
Video on a train, isn't it? Diddle, 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 diddle.
It's got a good chorus, this. I will try to break through. But I hate the bass sound. Hate it. I just can't stand the bass sound in this song. It's like, it's just... It's like, it's just horrible. It's horrible.
Well, that and I always get the feeling whenever I listen to it, and I listen back to it for this, obviously, it sounds like Days of Summer. There's a similarity.
Yeah, very much so.
And I can't shake it, and it can't be accidental because Queen didn't do accidents. So I don't know. It just at this point, this is their penultimate album. Innuendo is a very good album, so it's all right. It's all right. Like you said it last time. They're a singles band, and this was a good single. So,
and at number 19 was London Nights by the London Boys.
London nights, when the party nights and the fever drives you wild. Yeah,
we've spoken about these already. They came to a very tragic end.
Yeah, Gary mentioned it, didn't he? That they they died in a car crash and stuff. Sad, very tragic, yeah.
No, that's not good for anyone. I'm not a big fan of the music, but no one needs to die like that.
They were very young when they went as well. It's terrible.
Yeah. And at number 22 is Patience by Guns N' Roses.
It's a good track. I'll give him that. Goodness.
It's whistly.
It is.
It's a
very
bit
whistly.
Scorpions. It reminds me of the Scorpions.
It is. Oh no! Did you hear that Roger Whittaker had died? So
No.
Roger Whittaker's famous for his whistling.
Oh, he is, yes.
And he did Speed Bunny Boat, but he didn't sing it, he whistled it. But he died, sadly. But that's, just thinking of whistling. But it's Guns N' Roses, all right, Patience is a good track by them. Fair play.
Number 51 is Under the God by Tin Machine.
No.
I'd listen to this. It's just also misjudged.
It's
just
rubbish.
all over the place. It just I don't get it.
No,
I don't get it.
It was a Bowie being involved with Tin Machine was a foot in the door. Every A&R person across the land. That's all it was.
Yeah, probably.
If you want to get a foot in the door, mention that you got Bowie in the band, and he's going to be like, "Oh, it's David Bowie. It must be something funky." It was rubbish. Even he knew it. Really, I think in his heart, he knew that it was crap.
Yeah. Number 54. Here Comes Your Man by the Pixies.
Yeah, bit of a classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't stand at the place that you were. Reminds me of that every time I hear it.
Maybe.
It's very similar.
Maybe. I mean, Stan came later, didn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like that. But like I say, they're influential, so it probably is.
Probably is, yeah. We used to listen to this. I used to hear this a lot when we used to go out.
All the time in the barge and Bloody Gullivers, they played that all the time.
Always a good one. Strangely, this was earlier than I thought. Number 77 is Sit Down by James.
It threw me that, because I was thinking that was way later than that.
Yeah, but remember, we're into mid-89. Manchester is certainly a thing by now. We've had the Stone Roses albums and stuff. And
sing yourself to sleep. Na, na, na. I mean, it's not a terrible song.
It's a very good song, but it was ruined by arseholes on the dance floor.
It was. They used to sit down. They used to sit down when it played. They used to sit down. Yeah, exactly. I used to kick them. No, I'm an angry Ministry Prodigy fan. Don't sit down on a dance floor near me. I used to go and kick him
because you had big boots as well.
I was a big guy. I was I had the kind of demeanor that said, "Don't f*** with him because he's likely to kill you." But I'm actually friendly.
But you had a good apologetic face. Oh, sorry.
Yes, yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, sorry, but I did mean to do it really. So if I stood on you or kicked you when you were in Gulliver's and you remember that, I meant it.
But it's a good song. But it seems to be associated with people with dogs on strings and ones who sat down.
Dogs on strings, Krusties, as you've called them here. Is that the name from official name of Krusty?
Yeah, I think so.
Krusty the Clown was one of them, was he? By the way, I don't like this song by James, but James later did a really great album and a really good track on that, which is Tomorrow, which is a great track by them with the Brian Eno got involved with them at some point and it all went
She's
cool,
a Star Tomorrow. That's a really good album. Blade is also very good as well. Yeah,
that's what I mean. So, Brian Eno was, I think, production on that. He certainly played keyboards on it, so very cool.
Yeah, James were a good band. They kind of got lumped in with the sort of Manchester stuff, but they were never really part of it. They were going for ages before this, and they've been going for ages after it. They're just a band who did their own thing.
By the way, if you say the words Brian Eno 3 times, he appears.
Oh, don't say it then.
You know that. Well, it's too late. He's here now. All right, Brian.
Do you want to join in as a guest?
I've got a couple of synths downstairs if you want to. He's just looking at me blank and eating a small, very really small piece of pizza. It's like, I didn't even know where he got that from. Anyway, I'm surprised, because likewise, if you say it too many times, Gary gets very excited to the point when, he spills his brown sauce. That's all I'm saying.
He starts fidgeting.
He likes the Eno, he does. He's a bit of an Eno man.
He starts fidgeting and frothing at the ears.
He does, yeah. Things froth. And that's all I'm saying.
Anyway, he needs to sit down. Number 87, finally for the last single, is Bambolero by the Gypsy Kings.
Yeah, a good old catchy tune from our French Spaniard friends.
Indeed, yes, French Spanish friends. Going on to albums, 4th of June. In at number 3 was The Other Side of the Mirror by Stevie Nicks.
Well, we said last time, I'm not a fan of Stevie Nicks particularly, but
I had a bit of a listen to this earlier on. It's all right, I suppose. It's just not my favourite, but it's okay. We're probably going to rattle through most of these. Number 13, Avalon Sunset by Van Morrison.
No.
that you've linked. Is this When the Saints Go Marching In on this album?
Because Van Morrison,
I was laughing a lot listening to this earlier on.
Van Morrison's version. Van Morrison's version is When the Saints Go Marching In. It's actually that song. When the Saints go marching in. It's that. It's because I listen to that and I immediately hear I'm going to get you, sucker, when there's a woman on stage singing When the Saints Go Marching In. And I'm pretty sure that must be an homage or something to that because it sounds very similar.
It really does.
I didn't realise that. I didn't know there was a version by Van Morrison of that. I always thought that I'm going to get you, sucker was just a mad piss take of somebody stood down on stage singing.
It's probably a coincidence, but
Very, very, very funny.
Yeah, I was laughing at that. I was.
Oh, when the saints go marching in. So good.
Number 36 is Nine by Public Image Limited, or PIL.
9th album as well. I guess that's why they called it 9.
I guess that's why they called it 9. I guess that's why they called it The Truth.
I never have liked Public Image Limited, ever.
No, I've only liked a couple of their tracks, and they're the tracks that everyone knows.
Well, Open Up. Open up.
Yeah.
No, I hate that as well. So.
Oh well. 11th of June, in at number 2 is Raw Like Sushi by Nana Cherry.
It's got Buffalo Stance on that.
I'm sure it has. It was a big single,
What
wasn't
are
it?
you like? I remember Gary said he really fancied Nana Cherry.
Yeah, well, that's scary for you. In at number 3 was Flowers in the Dirt by Paul McCartney.
Yeah, 8th album. We mentioned that, didn't we? We said, it's got some rubbish stuff on it.
Yeah, we didn't really talk much about it. We just said he had a wobblehead.
He has got a wobblehead. That's all you need to know.
It did earn McCartney some of his best reviews for an album of original songs since Tug of War.
Yeah.
Which was 1982.
That's got Pipes of Peace on it and all that, hasn't it, I think?
That's the first album I ever bought.
What, with Pipes of Peace on it?
No, Pipes of Peace was the album.
Ah, what's Tug of War then?
I don't know. It was the one before it, I guess.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't know. I can't remember. I know I bought the album with Pipes of Peace on because I like that song. In at number 29 is Passion by Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? The soundtrack to The Last Temptation of the Christ, but he just carried on writing stuff and released it later.
Yeah, a bit weird. Several months after the film's release as well. So it became a fully fledged album instead of a soundtrack. Odd.
Yeah.
Odd. And The Last Temptation of Christ is not a film I've watched more than once ever. So I might have to rewatch that and see what it's like.
Is that a Scorsese one?
It is, yeah.
It is a Scorsese film, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Who plays Christ in it?
I don't know. Can't
Is it Willem Dafoe?
Quite possibly, but you'd need to Google it because it's a long time since I even had any thoughts about it. So
I want to say it's Willem Dafoe, but I could be wrong. I'll have a look in a minute. Well, up next is a double bill. And at number 36 is Goya, A Life in Song by Placido Domingo. I don't know what is this?
I don't know. It's a musical theatre work with music and lyrics by American composer Maury Yeston. So
concept album.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's a concept album with Placido Domingo singing on it, essentially.
There you go. And then at number 37 is The Essential Domingo by Placido Domingo.
Very busy guy. There's about 1 million tracks on that album.
He can't be stopped. He cannot be stopped.
It's a Domingo double, the Domingo double, as they call it in Spain.
Is that exactly what they call it, is it?
It is. Do you know what Placido Domingo actually translates to?
Go on.
Placid Domain.
Oh, right, okay.
That's his name.
Placid Domain.
Placid Domain, that's his name.
It's nice. Number 39 is World in Motion by Jackson Browne. Now, when I first saw this, I thought this was the New Order single. Remember the New Order single, World in Motion?
Oh, I remember it now, yeah.
But it's not.
Is that the same one?
No, it's not. World in Motion was the crap one with the John Barnes rap, if you remember that.
Oh, God, you've got a doobity-da with all the dee-biddy-doo, yeah.
Yeah, but that's nothing to do with this. This is the 9th album by American singer-songwriter Jackson Browne.
Okay.
The album took 3 years to complete and makes statements about nuclear disarmament and the secret government that brought forth Oliver North into the Iran-Contra scandal.
Yeah, you don't get that from the album track that I found, which was World in Motion. I didn't get that from that, but it is quite okay, I suppose.
The chorus in this reminded me of I think it was an Aerosmith song.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you which one, but yeah, I got that. When you said that, I was like, actually, yeah, there is the vibe of that.
There's the sort of 4 notes to start the chorus in this. I'd have to listen to it again.
Yeah, it might be. I can't think. It came. Yeah, there is that. I totally get that.
Yeah, and at number 45 is "Look Sharp" by Roxette.
Yeah, we talked about these a fair bit over the past few weeks because the singles were all landing, weren't they? The Look and all that. They were a very popular band, very good. Sweden has got a great knack for pumping out amazing bands and amazing singers and vocalists. You know, we've got these, ABBA, hundreds of others. You know, you can insert all the ones you like, plus Ghost, of course. All very good. All very good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it is good. I was never a massive fan of Roxette, but they did some good catchy singles.
Yeah, huge hit in the US. So very good.
Number 48 is "The Songs That Got Away" by Sarah Brightman. I just wish they had got away.
Not everyone's cup of tea. She's an English soprano.
Yeah,
of course. Andrew Lloyd Webber. She was married, I think, to Andrew Lloyd Webber, wasn't she? So, yeah, not for everybody that. But Sarah Brightman, of course, was. She didn't Sarah Brightman that did "I Fell in Love with the Starship Trooper."
Quite possibly, maybe.
I think so.
Don't know. And at number 67 is "Transphobia" by Mega City 4. 4, not going on there. Yeah, Mega City 4, one of my favourite bands.
They were, yes. You were very into these.
I was very much so. They were just to sort of preamble, they're an English indie rock band formed in Farnborough. There was sort of classic 4-piece, 2 guitars, vocals, drums and bass. Wiz was on vocals and lead guitar. Rhythm guitarist, his brother. And they were just great. They were just ace. And over the period of 4 albums, they sort of transformed their sound a little bit. They sort of started off, and this is quite a punky album. It's quite punky. It's quite sort of thrashy. But it's got Wiz's ability, who's the main songwriter and lyricist, to not just sort of, punky 3-chord, punky stuff. The songs are actually well produced, well put together, and there's a real kind of cohesion to the sound of an album. It's interesting as well. There's some weird samples on it. There's the album samples as Aliens, Predator, Brimstone, and Treacle to good effect on certain tracks, and it's just really good. And the thing was as well was that he had a really good knack for lyrics. And he was possibly one of my favorite lyricists because he was very much, when we started a band, he was very much the person whose lyrics influenced me the most to try and write in that style, because he just had a knack of sort of talking about stuff that was personal but kind of universal in a very, very clever way, but didn't feel overreaching or anything. It was just observational, really nice lyrics. And he just had a knack for doing that. And it was such a shame because he died in 2006 or 2007. He was at a band rehearsal for another band he was in at the time, and he collapsed and died of
that's terrible.
Brain hemorrhage, I think. So, and there is actually, since then, I was sort of doing some digging around today and looking around. There's actually a charity to support new music in his name, and there's loads of T-shirts you can actually buy on T-Mill to sort of support that. But yeah, I mean, they're just great. If you haven't listened to Mega City 4, they were kind of a bit in the shadow of some of the sort of other sort of thrashy pop bands around at the time, like Ned's Atomic Dustbin and things like that. But I always thought Mega City 4 were just way better. And if you don't like these, try out their 3rd and 4th albums, Sebastopol Road and Iron's Magic Bullets, which are just really full of great sort of guitar-y pop tunes, but just great, just amazing. And I never knew that Muse were a big fan of these, and they released a cover of their song Prague, which was off Sebastopol Road, the B-side. And there's a link to it here, and it's bloody awful.
Oh, can't get it right every time.
It's terrible. And then I've actually linked to Disturbed, which we covered in our band.
We did, yes, good.
Which was much better than that version of Prague by Muse. Anyway, there you go. I'll stop talking about Mega City 4. 18th of June, Badlands by Badlands. I'm already off to a bad start.
Yeah, just basically Black Sabbath-y stuff-ish, but no, it sounds exactly like you'd imagine it does. Some people had previously played with Black Sabbath, guitarists and it just sounds like you'd expect it to.
Yes,
I wasn't into it, and it wasn't into that kind of thing, and it was probably a bit of a one-album wonder, I think.
Number 4 is Eat Me in St. Louis by It Bites, or St. Louis, sorry.
Bloody It Bites. Now, again, not my thing, this kind of thing. This was produced by Reinhold Mack. That's the guy that produced a lot of Queen stuff. But just, I don't know, it just sounds like this sort of stuff's coming to an end. We're starting to get to the point where Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and all those other bands that you've mentioned as well, the reaction to the glam metal, the hair metal stuff is happening. And it's happening right at this point in time. It's not quite hit the UK yet because it was still underground, and the UK was led by music production organisations, of which there was about 5 labels. Yeah. So if the labels decided what was going to be put out in the UK, that's all you heard. But this came and beat them because it was not going to be stopped. And this kind of stuff was the reason why, really. There's so much of it, of this type. You start to get a bit like,
Yeah, so. Absolutely. We've already got the Pixies starting that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's already begun, but the UK was, I think, not slow to do it, but it had to come from an underground place, and because and it still is to some extent, the music industry and the production of it, the production of singles, was ruled by several big, large conglomerate companies from the US. A lot of this music never even got a look in, did it? So not straight away, anyway. And
at number 49 is Maria McKee, by Maria McKee. Call your album something. It's a debut album. Washington Post Joe Brown called the album stunning.
It is a very good album. Maria McKee is an incredible vocalist.
She's a very good vocalist. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
The album's all right for what it is. It's good if you like Maria McKee's sort of stuff. There's a track of that we'll put in the show notes, Breathe, which is a good track off that. But to be fair, if you ever wondered about how good she was at singing, and not that you might, but you might not get it because of the few songs that you may have heard that she became famous for. Obviously, Show Me Heaven was one from Days of Thunder, which was the big song from Days of Thunder. And she sang a live version of that on Top of the Pops in the 90s, early 90s. And it is an actual live version. So she goes, grabs the mic and sings, and everybody who was there, and it's one of those famous recording moments. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah,
it's up there with there's a few times when it happens in British TV. There's a time, this is one of those times. There's a time when Adele sang a song live, and it was mind-blowingly good. On one TV show, another, and there's another one where Jessie J sang a song as well.
I was going to say Suzanne Boyle.
To an extent, and less transformation from sort of crazy kooky person to singer, more just singers that people had heard, and to just when they did it live, everyone was like, "Wow, they really are actually that good."
Yeah,
and Jessie J when she did the X Factor, is it Bev Ditto? I think from the Gossip. When she sang Standing in the Way of Control on Graham Norton, I think it was, or one of those type of shows on Channel 4. I can't remember if it was Graham Norton or not. But that kind of performance, when people just sit there and go, wow, that really was something crazy good.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. We'll put the link in the show notes. Just remember, it's live, because she's hitting notes there without fault. And you're like, holy mother of God, that's pretty good.
Yes. In at number 51 is Counterfeit EP by Martin L. Gore.
Mr. Gore to you and me.
Yes, this is the primary songwriter for Depeche Mode, releasing an EP of 6 cover songs, hence the name Counterfeit.
Yeah, it's not very good, I'll be honest.
It's not the best.
It's just a bit weak. I
always found this, I mean, I remember Rush did a compilation. It's the one thing they ever did, which is a bit weird. They did something else. I can't remember what it was called. But they did a sort of small 6 cover version sort of EP thing. And I was like, the thing was with the Rush thing is like, they just sounded exactly like the originals because they're incredibly competent musicians. And you're like, well, what's the point? But yeah, and this was a bit, not the same because it's Martin L. Gore, but it's just a bit wishy-washy, isn't it? It's a bit nothing.
Yeah,
it's not got Dave. So. He's always been that way. Some of the songs that he does in Depeche Mode are okay. They fit his song, but he's not Dave Gahan. He's not,
no.
He's not got Gahan's vocal style.
Trying to be nice about it, but it's not very good.
No, it's not.
It's kind of empty and a bit productionless and a bit rubbish.
25th June, let's just round out the month. Straight in at number 1 was the Batman OST by Prince. We've spoken about that already quite a bit. In at number 9 was A Night to Remember by Cyndi Lauper.
Aye, good old Cindy there. Not very good, though. Badly received, that album. It didn't
do very
not
well.
And not very big commercial success at all.
And I never knew she did a cover of I Drove All Night. Which was a single
because they buried it.
It was the big single off it. It was
big.
Well, it was a single that was released, but the video for this is really weird. I don't know if you watched the video.
Yeah, with the predictions and that. Yeah,
yeah, she sat there naked, sort of covered up, knees up to her chest and arms around her knees, sort of thing. But there's just projections of cars and roads on her, which are just a bit weird. It's a bit.
The whole thing was weird, and her voice is weird. It doesn't suit that at all. It's just.
I didn't think it did either.
No. She had one big hit, well, maybe 2 actually.
Yeah,
and then after that, it's kind of everything else is a bit like, eh.
Number 18 is Protest Songs by Prefab Sprout.
Ugh, don't like Prefab Sprout. So.
I don't either. Let's not say anything about them.
No.
Number 27 is Walking on Sunshine, the best of by Eddie Grant.
Yeah.
Best of
like
Eddie Grant.
You'll like a best of, won't you?
You would. In at number 30 is Any Way You Wanna by the Beatmasters.
Yeah, I'd rock the house on that. Rock the house is on that one. So good track, good album. But if you like that Beatmasters, you're going to dig it, right?
Okay. In at number 39 is 2300 Jackson Street, 2300 Jackson Street by the Jacksons.
Album number 16 for our Jackson friends.
And their final
Jacksons, maybe you like that one, but yeah, it is their final album, and maybe it's a good thing they stopped because it's not very good.
And finally, just to round out the month, in at number 47 is Big Game by White Lion.
God, this White Lion, honestly. Repeat what we said about bands that caused an entire rift in the music industry. They'd caused a schism. And the schism was coming to hit them hard with Nirvana and all the other bands. So, and this is an example of why. So
that picture is an example of why. There's no need for that outfit in 1989. He's wearing a jacket of madness and yellow, what I think are spandex or leather pants with just targets on them. It's just ridiculous.
It's rubbish. I mean, someone had said to them, because they've got a really good guitarist in the band. Fair enough. And the singer clearly is starting to imitate David Lee Roth badly in that. So they've obviously gone,
Very much so,
because
yeah.
Van Halen have gone down the road of having Sammy Hagar at this point. People still want to hear that Van Halen sound with David Lee Roth. This band are doing a kind of cover band imitation of Van Halen at that point.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's exactly how it sounds. So if you like that kind of, David Lee Roth, Van Halen, and I do massively, you might like it, but I found it just derivative. There's Van Halen who do Van Halen. They don't need another kind of crappy version, and his pants are stupid.
Yeah, as I said, it reminds me of White Spirit with Tempton Flex.
That is Tempton Flex, isn't it? Yeah, massively. He is Tempton Flex.
White Spirit,
as I imagine him. Yeah. No one should wear yellow trousers.
No one. White Spirit was our made-up fictional metal band we came up with.
It was, yeah.
What
was the name of the band members? We had Tempton Flex.
There was Tempton Flex. I think there was Krusty Rhythms on drums or something.
Lovey Craves It, was it? Or something like that. I can't remember now. But...
yeah, something like that. It's a dreadful thing. Anyway, there we go. That's your music. There's a lot of music. We're going to go away, take a quick break. And we'll be back. We still have 3 more games to get through. And they are an interesting bunch of games, I can tell you that. So please do keep listening. And we are back for the final part for this week. 3 more games still to get through. And they are... well, they're interesting, let's say that. Graham, over to you for the first one, and that first one is Xenon.
Xenon, £9.99, pence, 70%. Okay. This was published by Melbourne House. Conversion, being the operative word, was by MC Lothlorien, which sounds like a really big Scottish DJ from the 90s, but it probably wasn't. This was coded by Chris Caress, good name. He did Bosconian, which was a game that was never in Zap, so I don't know if we will ever have looked at that, but it was back in 1988, I think. I don't know, pretty sure, but anyway.
No, we didn't. No.
Chris Caress is a good name. He also sounds like a DJ. It sounds like a DJ lineup. Well, MC Lothlorien, Chris Caress, and Bomber Anderson sounds like 3 DJs from 1996 who were playing a nightclub in Derby, and I would have gone to see them.
You would have.
I would have been there. Yeah, absolutely would have been there. So, and the musician was Paul Tong, not Pete Tong, Paul Tong. That's his brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me have a look. Oh, it is as well.
Yeah, he was later responsible for the C64 music for Narc and a game called Pang.
Oh, Pang's great.
Yeah, so
Pang's
what a DJ lineup we've got.
Game,
We've got Paul Tong, Bomber Anderson coming up later on tonight, Chris Caress and MC Lothlorien in the house. Rock the house. Very good. Okay, so this is technically, I suppose you could say, this is, not technically, it is a Bitmap Brothers game at heart. Not this version so much, but the actual game of Xenon was a 16-bit game. And it was their first big game as well that kind of put them on the map, wasn't it? Huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was originally released for the Atari ST, and Xenon was then quickly ported to other platforms, the Amiga, the Amstrad, Commodore 64, DOS, MSX and ZX Spectrum, an arcade version which used Amiga hardware, which was called the Mastertronic Arcadia, was also out there. So Xenon was an arcade as well. But that was apparently, it was an arcade machine that had 10 games on it. And if this was one of those things. Anyway, just to give you a little rundown from the back of the box kind of cover type thing. It says on the box, from the moment that Captain Zod's face appeared out of the static on the communicator, you knew he was in trouble. As the only other Federation ship in the sector, you had to go to his aid. You need to fight your way through 16 zones, collecting essential supplies for the fleet. At the end of each sector, you have a chance to refuel and restock, but only after you have defeated the most vicious aliens you have ever seen. A strategic, vertically controlling shoot 'em up, you have the option of swapping between 2 very different craft to suit the challenge facing you at the time. Either a ground-based saucer or a well-armed and faster fighter aircraft. A fast-moving, thinking man's shoot-'em-up. Features extra weapons and defenses that appear throughout the game. Digitized effects and speech on the Atari ST and Amiga. Stunning graphics. I'm guessing that's also the Atari ST and Amiga. Thoroughly addictive gameplay. And it said 16-bit C and VG Game of the Month. Sinclair User Classic. Your Sinclair Mega Game. Commodore 64 rating, egg of the dog. So we'll go, that's not official. I've just added that on there. So this is a D-port of the ST, Amiga Arcade, whatever you want to call it, for the C64. You start things with the fire button when it kicks off. This is obviously, since this is a vertical shoot 'em up of sorts, you begin on the ground as the ground vehicle. And the screen scrolls up when you reach midway. It scrolls slowly and reveals a lot of grey, heavy bas relief enemies and turrets that shoot at you. And pressing the space bar changes you between your ground-based saucer or your fighter aircraft. Each has their benefits, if you can call on that. The ground-based one can shoot and move in 8 directions, but only shoot ground-based objects, of course. Your flying fighter can seemingly shoot more enemies, but only upwards, of course. And there are some ground items you cannot shoot if you're in the aircraft, and so on and so forth. Shooting some of the enemies will reveal a letter token, which you can collect to add upgrades to either craft. Some of the upgrades are only applicable to certain craft. You won't know which, but it is in the instructions, and it does tell you, just in case you were wondering. The screen will either auto-scroll if you are flying, or push-scroll if you're on the ground. Gradually, you will work your way through the level until you get to a larger boss or enemy flying ship type deal. Okay. The game window, the main game window, is 3/4 of the screen on left-hand side is the main game window, and the right-hand quarter is a UI column with the score, the ammo, shield, status sector, the usual kind of things that you find in those kind of columns. It's all in shades of grey, which is, I suppose, meant to be like silver, which probably is silvery looking on a machine with more colours, but it looks kind of grey on the C64. A bit bitty, I suppose, but I suppose it's okay, just what it does. Scrolling works okay. There's no raster bugs that I saw, but the graphics in the main are a combination of hardware sprites and character graphics, which quickly look blocky, dull, and also they have these kind of weird outline things that appear at certain times, which is a little bit crap. There's a tiled floor in a kind of blue colour, but the mainstay of the graphics colour of the display is greys with black outlines and some kind of blue and white highlights. It's a bit drab on the eye and very similar looking all the way through. Not how the Atari ST and Amiga one looks at all. At all. I guess that's the compromise. Your Groundcraft is a fairly badly realised blocky sprite, and I have to say that because in the C64 world, this is blocky. And when we've had games that have had really nice looking single sprites and a bit of shading, even on CRT, this would be blocky, and that tells you that it's pretty blocky, right? It's like that.
Blocky.
But the trouble is here, of course, as well, that I suppose that you could say that the fighter ship is marginally better and they move okay. The controls responsive, maybe, but the graphics start to blend into each other. So the background and the sprites are all kind of grey coloured, you're kind of grey, whichever variation of that you're operating in, it's all a bit monochromatic. And that's pretty dreary. We've had loads of really colourful games. I know it's not the same as this, but think Armalite in terms of colour. Delta, loads of them. They've all had colour. The 64 may not have lots of colour, but it has more than 4.
I'd go back to Light Force.
And Light Force, yeah, just, you can put shades of colour in this. And this just, it's a bit absent. But anyway, so things move okay. Controls, like I said, responsive. If you lose energy, and you will lose energy, you'll lose a life eventually. And you'll always restart from the beginning of a level, which is both tiresome, needless, and stupid. Games at this point in time should not have that as a mechanic. We should have got past that long ago. If you think back to if you're playing even Forgotten Worlds in this very episode, you get a continue. So to not have that is a throwback to something really stupid. And I think it's safe to say we've established the need for continuity in games. To not have it, I'm sorry, but you're adding a difficulty spike for no reason at all. It's unnecessary. And it's unpleasant. So there seems to be little logic to this game, really. You can even just, when I was playing the game, I needed to just sort of write some notes down. So I just parked my spaceship for a while. Nothing was shooting at me because I was out of the arc of their shooting, because it's so brainless and mindless that the enemies and the AI, of such as they aren't an AI. They just fire in a direction. And if you happen to be in the way of those things that are firing that direction, then you're going to get blown up. If you're not, you could just sit there for hours, which is exactly what I did. Engaging the battles becomes very simple because there's nothing really much in the way of you. Especially if you're the flying ship, as it were. There's no reason. I could never really find a reason to be the sort of the ground-based vehicle in this, because it felt like once I was the flying ship, I kind of had all the power I needed, which is kind of odd. And I think in
top-down Silkworm.
Yeah, and in the Amiga. And the Amiga and ST versions, the balance is better for those things. You have a need to be those kind of vehicles because there's ground-based things that you can't shoot, and they shoot at you, so you've got to get them. So that idea of switching between the two doesn't work here, so you're better off just being one. There are sound effects, and I suppose they're nothing fancy, and the music in the game is a kind of fairly short loop. I suppose it's passable, but it gets annoying over time. The problem with this, in all fairness, is that it's aside from the graphics being dreary and colourless, which is a bit unforgivable, even on a machine with the limited palette of the C64, the game lacks panache. it lacks the panache, especially of the 16-bit versions. The 16-bit version of Xenon is what led the Bitmap brothers to start making much more heavyweight games on the 16-bit platforms. And you can tell that the 16-bit platforms and beyond was where their heart was. So this wasn't converted by them. This is kind of a demaker that boils the core concept down, but it does that in such a way that it loses all the parts of what made the 16-bit version interesting. Now, we've seen this happen before with arcade conversions. It's unusual for it to be a 16-bit Amiga. Well, not unusual, but it's unusual that something as straightforward as a top-down shooter on the C64 would get this kind of colorless, drab remake treatment. You need the graphics and the sounds and sampled speech and animations and the 16-bit styling for this to work, because that's what makes Xenon on 16-bit. The C64 version is a functional shoot-'em-up, which is kind of a crime. If that's the best you can say about shoot-'em-up, something very wrong in the world. It has no heart. Where's the heart? Give me your heart. There's no heart in this. And it doesn't come across as very exciting at all. In fact, it isn't exciting. It's very dreary, very pedestrian, very monochrome. The graphics are dreary. There's a blocky mass. There's no interest in making this playable or worthwhile. It's a conversion that somebody did with no love for the game at all. It's just, do that conversion for us. All right, they did it. But this is so far from Xenon and the later games that would come from the Bitmap brothers that it's almost silly to even include it in the canon of their games. But it has the name Xenon and the Bitmap brothers were involved. It got 70%. I think they were being very kind to the Bitmap brothers. I think they were also leaning heavily on the thoughts of their Amiga and ST versions and what they've played. This is a 40% or less all the way. There's better shoot-ups out there, even by this standard, and it's full price too. So it's a shame because the Amiga and all the other versions, 16-bit versions, but if you're going to play a version of Xenon, and I would suggest you wait till Xenon 2, but if you're going to play this, play the 16-bit Amiga version or the ST version. Don't play this one because it's rubbish, and which is a shame. And I hate to say it because the Bitmap brothers are some of my most favourite game designers on the Amiga, but it is what it is. And I didn't really like this at all. What about you?
Nah, I don't know. I mean, I was willing to give this the benefit of the doubt at first because it's a very and like you said, once you press spacebar, you're never going to press it again, are you?
No.
No, you're not. Until I got to the first level boss and it changed me back to the tank or whatever that thing is on the floor. And then I died and it sent me all the way back to the beginning of the level. Just no. Yep. I was like, nope. It's a game that is disrespectful of your time.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely true.
And these things piss me off. It's like one we saw the other week. What was it? ISS, Incredible Shrinking Sphere. Any game where you're making progress and you've been playing for quite a while or something like that, even if it's like a minute or two that it does it, and then just send you all the way back. It's just no. Because I don't want to repeat that. You could have just respawned me in the boss section. The boss could have been taking the damage that it had taken, and then I killed it and moved on. Your player would have been way more happier. But no, you spawn them back at the beginning, and I'm not having that. So I was not that into it from the get-go. I mean, whatever, but because, like I said, like Silkworm, playing as the flying craft was far more enjoyable than the tank, and you just wouldn't go back to it. So I don't see the point of the two craft. Maybe on the Amiga, as you say, there's a reason for that. I don't know. I thought the game looked like a Shuk game, if I'm perfectly honest. Yeah. And when I was actually searching for this in our big database of games that we've got, I actually found a Shuk variant of this. I didn't play it fully. I'm going to have a quick look at it. But somebody has actually made a Shuk variant of this because he started off as a tank. I was like, this is a Shuk game. This is not the original. Then I played the original. I went, that Shuk one's not too far off. And the music, it's not pumping enough for this kind of game. It's not pump it, baby, pump it. It's not. I think of Xenon, and I think of obviously Xenon 2. It is Xenon 2, isn't it? Mega Blast.
Yeah.
And what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear Xenon or Xenon 2? You think of those games. The first thing that comes to your mind is that piece of music. That music from the Amiga version, which we used to listen to just because it was ace. So no, this was really dreary, dull, and like I said, just disrespectful. I may have had some leeway with this, but I'm not doing entire levels again when I die. And a shoot 'em up, no, just don't. I don't. No for me. I turned it off. I just stopped. I'm not playing it anymore. I don't care. You may have the best levels, but I don't think you're going to have the best levels ever because the graphics were muddy and and also as well, a lot of the bullets, like I said this with Tomcat as well, because Tomcat has a lot of grey. The bullets would sometimes get lost in the melange of grey backgrounds and the blue and it's grid. I don't understand the background. It's just a blue grid. It's boring. Nah, it's not for me. The 70% is way too kind. This is like a 40-50. It's just a bit dull. It's not even 2-player, is it? Is it 2-player? I don't think it is it?
I don't think it is, no.
I don't think it is. So it's not even like Swiv where you can play with two people or Silkworm where you can play with two people. It's just you're either the tank or the thingy. If you one or the other, then...
No, it's not 2-player in that way, I don't think at all.
Nah, which would have added maybe something, but no. Xenon. Xenoff, as I'm concerned. There we go. That's Xenon. That's the first one for this part. Let's move along and get into our next one. And that one, Graham, is Rockstar Ate My Hamster. Yes, a Rockstar Ate My Hamster. This is from Codemasters, and for the full price of, like Xenon, $9.99, 999 pence, this is Rockstar Ate My Hamster. If you don't get the reference for the title, and if you're not from the UK, you probably don't.
Might not,
This references a headline in the Sun newspaper. I don't like talking about the Sun, but this is what it is. From the 13th of March, 1986, which read, Freddie Starr ate my hamster. Now, that was a real headline on a national newspaper. Freddie Starr was a controversial comedian who supposedly came back from a gig, demanded a sandwich he was staying at someone's house and he demanded a sandwich from their wife. They didn't make it, so when it wasn't done, supposedly he put a hamster between two slices of bread and proceeded to eat it. Starr, who was a vegetarian from his teenage years, denied this. Okay, it didn't happen. I mean, clearly it didn't happen. It's a stupid story, but it ever was. It became one of the most famous sort of headlines ever in British newspaper because it's stupid. The story stuck. Anyway, there you go. That's where the Rockstar Ate My Hamster thing comes from. So the manager here, in the credits, the manager here was Colin Jones and Richard Darling. The coding was by Colin Jones. The graphics for this were by Chris Graham, and the musician was Gavin Rayburn. Gavin Rayburn doing the music here. So when the game starts, the story of this is you are essentially going to try and manage a band and make them popular. That's it. There's not much. That's the story to this. When the game starts, you're asked how many rock stars you want to manage. You can manage from 1 to 4. And you're asked this by your assistant, Cecil. And Cecil is your guide throughout the game, always asking what you want to do next and sorting some stuff out for you and things like that. If you pick more than one, then they form a band. And you have 50. There are 50 pop star caricatures to choose from. And I'm going to go through them all here. So, because I'm gonna. So you've got Wacko Jacko, Tina Turnoff, Elvin Dwight, which is Elton John, Bimbo Baggins, which is Kylie. You've got Iggy Carrust, Bowie, Dorothy, the one that made me laugh the most, Bill Collins, because the picture of Phil Collins just did actually make me laugh quite a lot. The caricature of him. I really probably shouldn't, but it looked like Phil Collins, like he'd just eaten a lot of pies. And it was just Bill Collins and made me laugh. Maradona, Lummy, said Lemmy, Scratch and Sniffer, which was weird. That was Salt and Pepper, I think. Sydney Sparkle, which is Gary Glitter. Mince, which is Prince. Rick Gasly, Dick Knackerd, which is Mick Jagger, Gracie Chapperson, Eddie Quicksilver, Freddie Mercury, Jean-Michael Jars, Kate Bush, Snoozy Sue, Peter Gobsmacked, Frank Zipper, Rotten Johnny, Bonehead, which is Bono, Rupert Beetle, which is a weird one from McCartney, Meathead, Annie Smallpox, Brian Nylon, which is Brian Ferry, Sneezy Wonderful, I can't remember who that was, Dingo Strap, Sardo, which is Sade, Freddie Grunt, Derek Claptout, that one made me laugh as well, Bruce Stringbean, Stiff Pilchards, Alison Nightmare, Crispy Rind, Michael Gorge, Izzy Asbeen, Witless Houston, Titchy Blackhead, String, Harry Newman, Rodney Holder, Ted Newsagent, that one made me chuckle as well, Midge Sewer, Dozy Trowell, Harvey Headband, Cod, which is Fish, Harley Watts, and finally Jane Jett. There you go.
Right.
And there's a caricature for each one of those, so you get one. It takes a while to actually pick them, but you go through and you pick what you want. Each one has a weekly wage, and these range from £30,000 for Bill Collins to £50 for Sydney Sparkle. You start off with 50k, so you need to choose wisely whether you want a band of low-cost rock stars or one mega star. Once you've done that, if you've got a band and you can accept the suggested name, or you can type in your own. So I had the Bobbies with Kylie, Morrissey, Lemmy, and Rick Astley. That's what I had. That was a good lineup. After that, you can buy them gear from new to barely used to crap. And then you get to the main set of options. So before that, the screen here is laid out with you as the manager and Cecil sat behind a desk in the middle of the screen. At the top is a big speech bubble where either your or Cecil's text will appear. When you're saying stuff, the options appear in a window in the middle of the screen. And at the bottom, you have 4 empty slots for gold discs, the amount of cash you have left, the date, so it starts on 1st of January, and the sales data for when you start to release records. You lose the game if all your band members leave, which I had in the first game, because the first time I tried it, I just had Jane Jett, and she immediately asked for a £60,000 for a facelift, or she would leave, and I only had £30,000 left, so that was an immediate game over. So that was I thought it was a bit harsh. So yeah, all your band members leave, or if you run out of money, or you don't get the 4 gold records by the end of the year. So you've got 1 year to play through. The options in the middle are practice. When it starts off, you've got 4 options. These are practice, gig, publicity, and gifts. Practice allows the band to get better, and you can choose to do this from 1 to 5 days. You can send them off to practice somewhere, and that costs you money, obviously. The second option is gig. Everything costs money. The second option is gig, and this allows you to play pubs, clubs, university, concert halls, or stadiums. Each one costs more than the last. The last but can hold more people, and you can charge more money for tickets, but be careful not to charge too much, and no one will turn up. And you can also play for 2 to 7 nights. But again, each night costs money, so you need to make sure you're going to make your money back each night. If no one's come in, no point putting a tour on. You can lose money quite quickly when the tour starts. The view changes to a screen of a tour bus, but it looks like a school bus. And your mini pop stars are in the back, like I said, like a school bus, just the tops of their heads sort of poking over the seats. It's odd, but kind of amusing. It's all right. It's not bad. Up next is publicity, and this gives a random event that can boost or weaken the popularity of the band. It can even kill them off, which happened to me. And this is presented as the front page. This popularity is presented as the front page of the Stun newspaper, and it usually has some headlines around it as well, which are very much of the time. And it will sometimes even feature a page 3 girl. So the digitized boobs really do date this badly. Like, okay, whatever. Yeah, so well, on my first popularity stunt, Kylie was killed in an orgy, which was weird. So I was down to 3 members, just Morrissey, Lemmy, and Rick Astley. So the bobbies were just down to, there was just the 3 bobbies then. Next, you can buy your band some gifts, from £1 comics all the way up to £20,000 cars. After playing some gigs, you'll get offered a record deal, and you can accept this or not. Accept it, because basically you'll get an offer, kind of like a Dragon's Den thing. Say, well, we want to sign you for £20,000, but we take 10% of any sales. It's like, okay, well, we'll see. And you can accept it or not. If you accept it, you get another option now to record, and you can then choose the size of the studio you want, from a simple 2-track for £2,000 up to a 48-track for £50,000. Obviously, the more you spend, the better the quality of the record, and so on and so forth. I think. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but that's what you kind of expect to be happening. When you do this, you'll then get some music snippets as the album is recorded, and you can accept the names of the songs suggested or name them all yourself. I think there's 10 tracks. Each track takes a day or 2 to record. Sometimes things will go wrong, and the recordings will be lost, and you have to then take longer. So there can be these random events that sort of bugger things up. Once the tracks are recorded, you can then choose to release either the album or a single. If you release a single, you can make a video for it. And then once again, you've got to factor in the cost of a director, where you're going to film it, what type of video you're going to make, and all that kind of thing. You can also release the album. And once again, you get to name that album whatever you want. And that's kind of it. So all things progress the calendar. Every day you do something. If they're practicing, it takes days. And it's the months sort of roll on and roll forward. Every Friday, you need to pay the combined wages of the band. And once you've released something, on the Sundays, you get a rundown of the charts, sort of counting down from 10 to 1 for singles and 10 to 1 for albums. And really, that's about it. From this point on, you can release more singles, you can do more gigs, you can pay wages and that sort of thing. And you can see if they get into the charts, and you can get more publicity, and you can record stuff, and so on and so on and so forth. And you're trying to win money, you send out on gigs and blah, blah, but it just becomes very tedious very quickly. The graphics in the game, they're very Spectrum-esque, with sort of high-res sort of drawn outlines and block character graphics to sort of fill them in that don't go to the edge. And it looks a bit amateurish, I have to say. I didn't really like the look of this a great deal. The tunes for the music, you'd expect a sort of game based around rock, rock stars and good music. They're very brief. They sound very much, I thought it was David Whittaker at first, because they sound very Whittaker-esque.
Yeah,
but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not great, but there's not a memorable tune amongst them. When I was listening to it, I was just like, none of these are striking as a good tune. Quite a lot of the band names and the songs in the charts have dated very badly, and it's really just another product of the time that has just not aged well at all, from the sort of page 3 topless girls on the Stun newspaper to the titles of the albums to the titles of the songs. Yeah, and there's the boring gameplay, because there's not really that much to do, and I don't actually think there's much AI going on behind it. I think it's all just randomly generated. I think it's just a bit of nonsense. If you couple all this with the bitty visuals, the bland tunes, like I said, the boring gameplay, then the most interesting thing about this game is the title itself, I guess, Rockstar Ate My Hamster, and even that's not interesting anymore because it's all nonsense. But I didn't really enjoy this. I played this for quite a while, but I was like, you just go in, once you've set everything up, and you get to about February, March, you're just like,
yeah,
well, I'll go on another gig. I'll release another single. Well, is there anything else to do? And you get bored very quickly. So there's a very obvious, clear lack of depth to this beyond the first month or two. And I very doubt you're ever gonna last a year at this, because it just gets really boring really quickly. That was my take on this. What did it get? 50%? Maybe. Don't know. Probably too high, but especially for a tenner. What did you think? See, it's different, but it's not very good.
Yes, I had the same issue with it, really. I mean, there's probably some fun to be had because you can name your own bands, name your own songs, name your own albums. That did appeal to me a little bit because, you know, I had a bit of fun doing that. But it gets very repetitive very quickly. It's so procedural, it's to the point of annoying. So if you record an album, every single track needs to be named. You've got to press a button, you've got to go in and do it. Yeah. And it's just really ploddy and methodical. I had some silly moments in it, and maybe it would pass some time. One of my key problems with this was that it needed real music in it. That would have just helped.
Yeah,
because it's a game fundamentally about gigs, music, bands and stuff, and I get that, but just having 10-second dirges of sounds, just put some, you could even have had sound that got better, so that by the time that the bands got better, they were playing kind of, half-decent SID tunes or something. That would have just elevated it a bit, because it's more than capable of doing that. There's not a lot going on in terms of graphics and stuff like that here either.
No.
I had a band called Calibos on the Jets. They did pretty well for themselves. They ended up playing stadiums and stuff. They were pretty good. It was a combination of Tina Turner, whatever she was called, and Kylie Minogue, whatever she was called. So, and I get all that. I still think it would have been better that you could have just not necessarily picked from famous stars and just could have just been anybody's. And that would have probably given it a bit more legs as well. So you could just, create your own band look and feel. Those things would have been easy to do. Even if you just had a selection screen where you just had a face, you chose a face, then you chose a wig or a hair, then you chose a kind of a look. Those things would have been easy to add and would have made this game a lot better. Because then you'd have personalized the band to the point when you had a bit more buy-in. Because you're essentially just forming cover bands out of crazy, stereotypical but silly versions of other band names, the silliness of these games wears off pretty quick. And so there's not a lot to go at. It just felt slow, and eventually, you're going to get tired of the fact that it's not got decent music in it, and it's your band name, and you're releasing funny singles. That's not going to last long. It's certainly not going to last for 10 quid. So 50%, I don't know, maybe. It clearly had Spectrum leanings as well because of the way the high-res graphics. They're not terrible, but at the same time, there's not much to it. It passed some time, but for 10 quid, I want my time to pass with a bit more flair and a bit more fun. This felt a bit dull overall, so no.
The game you're describing, and we both played it, and I played it probably a lot more than you did, but I know you played it as well, is Rock Band down the line. Rock Band 3, where you create your own, but you create your own band, you play the instruments, you go out on tour, you do all those things. The interesting bit there is you're the band rather than the manager. So, but I mean, so I can see like the inkling of that here, but obviously you're never going to get that on the C64, but way down the line when you get things like Rock Band, Guitar Hero and all those kind of things. And
the crazy thing is, there is a version of Rock Band that you can play on the C64.
Is there?
Somebody did make that. It's not the whole game, but just the runway parts.
Is it like SID versions of songs with the pressing the buttons? So
you have to press the button and move your joystick to do the things. It's pretty cool.
That is cool. I might check that out.
That is out there. And I will also say that some of the graphics in this are fun. Images of people like Robert Maxwell and stuff like that, which is clearly what it is, not so much.
Oh, is that who the manager is, Robert Maxwell?
Yeah, not so much the manager, the guy with the big cigar and stuff like that. It's very.
I didn't twig to that. I didn't get.
They're all kind of looking like it's of its time, and I get that, but I'm just like bit naff. But okay, modern lens being what it is and all like that, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, not much game to back it up, was there? Not really. There we go. That's Rockstar Ate My Hamster. We've still got one more to go, so let's move along and get on with that one. And Graham, well, this is a really weird one. It's time for you to be the Muncher.
Yeah, all right. So this is published by Gremlin Graphics. It was copyright Beam Software. Beam have done a whole slew of games which are weird. So, I mean, this is a game based on a character in an advert for a Chewy sweet. Is this the most tenuous game idea we've had for some time? I think it might be.
It might be.
It's a game based on an advert which is selling sweets. Chewy sweets, Chewits, in fact. And now it says on the title screen for this, Chewits 10p. I'm like, goodness, it's showing its age there. Blimey, this was way back when Mars bars were 25p or 30p. Now they're 80 to 90p. So it shows you how things have moved on. There is some original instructions with a little bit of blurb. I'll go through that because it just sets the tone, really. But it actually says the Muncher, which has made me laugh, but it's the Muncher. Is a game of destruction and devastation. The player controls a large and angry prehistoric monster who is out to destroy Japan. I didn't totally get Japan from this, but okay.
No, I didn't.
Why should a normally peace-loving creature wish to inflict such havoc? Well, it seems that some Japanese explorers have unearthed and stolen some eggs and have brought them back to Japan. For centuries, they, like everyone else, have thought about your species to be long extinct. They are wrong. As the game begins, you arrive at the coast of Japan in search of the lost eggs. which have been scattered around the cities of this island country. Naturally, the armed forces are out in force, and you must battle your way through the cities and army bases, carrying out your plan of urban redevelopment. In the course of your journey, you will come across your lost eggs. Once they have been found, you should search for a nuclear waste dump. Not only are those nuclear waste sites very tasty and invigorating, but they also have good sites for hatching monster eggs. Using these sites, you should be able to create more monsters to carry on should you fail. As Japan is such a small place, and with all this monster activity in the surrounding sea, it is not surprising that you will occasionally encounter other monsters during your exploits. Like your monster, they tend to have a rather intense need to express their deeper emotions by means of violence and destruction. If you must, defeat all 3 enemy monsters. Finally, you or one of your descendants will reach the harbour and will sail off into the sunset, well, almost. And like the endless cycles of life, it will all begin anew. That's just the blurb. All right. So the title screen is a basic thing.
The basic? That's overselling it.
I mean, you get a loading screen, which is kind of a scanned image from the advert, which is a loading dinosaur creature. Yeah. Big gremlin logo. The Muncher eats Chewits. It's clear who this is sponsored by, but okay, it is what it is. But the title screen, I'm not sure. It's a tricolored block with the word monster in the center, but it's off center as well. It's honestly, it's like an afterthought. It says F1 is stage 1, F3 1 player, F5 joystick keyboard, F7 start. It's like a 1983 Spectrum game. I'm half expected to say Kempston joystick and press the button for that, and then there's some text. The game itself, well, a large Tyrannosaurus Rex type character, which is the monster. And it's a big and blocky old thing, this, but it looks kind of what it's meant to be. So, okay, I'll go with that. Plods across the screen, controlled by you with the joystick. You move left and right across a horribly blocky and badly realized landscape of blocks in the shape of buildings and green splats that are probably trees. Okay. When there's the kind of I guess you'd call it a ground, yellow stripy ground or yellow ground. And underneath that, there is a UI of sorts, which has got this really weirdly smiley version of your dinosaur face, which is really odd. It tells you what score you've got, how many hits energy you've got left, your top score, and of course, it tells you where you're at the moment, because obviously with the 16 levels, you've got 16 places to be. As you walk to the right, the screen will eventually scroll to reveal more buildings, but it's when you're at the far right of the screen. So it's a bit silly to do it there. And it kind of affects the way the game works as well. So it's a bit naff that. Also, helicopters will fly around and shoot at you, and also people walk along the bottom of the screen. Some of them are military and will also shoot at you, and you can grab these and eat them if you wish. There are also military vehicles. You can also reach, and there's different moves with your dinosaur as well with the joystick. So whilst you're on the ground and without fire press, you can move left and right. You can press down to duck, and then you can do sort of jump left, jump up and right, and jump up. And if you hold the fire button down, you can bite flying objects. If you push up, you can lash your tail. You can do a roar, slight breath, and you can grab and eat. And you can also jump and clamber onto buildings, similar to the game with the 3 dinosaur creatures. What's it called?
Rampage,
similar to Rampage. So you can sort of jump, climb up the buildings, punch, and do that kind of thing. And again, if you're on the building without fire, you can climb up, punch forward. With fire pressed, when you're on a building, you can bite objects, you can punch backwards, you can do another breath, and you can kick the building as well. So, okay, there's actually quite a lot of controls there, and they don't work terribly well, but they don't work terribly badly either. They kind of almost operate. And I'll come a little bit to more of that anyway. So the military are going to shoot at you. Like I said, there's vehicles. When you grab at them and do what you do and shoot at them or breathe at them, they'll blow up. You can grab people and eat them with quite a satisfying sort of scream sound, which is quite fun. And you can walk along and shoot fireballs at the buildings, and you can destroy the buildings, and eventually, if you destroy enough of the building, it'll fall down in a similar way to Rampage does. The graphics are pretty basic, but they kind of function. The main dinosaur is actually a really huge sprite, in all fairness, taking up a fair chunk of the old screen. It also moves okay. Surprisingly okay. It's a bit picky to try and climb the buildings because you've got to jump and sort of grab, but it kind of works. And the buildings and the scrolling, the sad thing is it happens only when you're at the very edge of the screen, which is really silly because that would have been really good to not do that. But it still kind of means you can kind of move along. So you walk, you jump, you grab, you smash. While not wholly new or inventive, there is a kind of passing fun to be had with this. And I'm not quite sure really why. It's certainly an odd license at best, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I found myself kind of playing it and having some basic kind of fun with it. I mean, it's nothing really fancy, but there's a large sprite there, and the idea of running around and eating people is not without appeal. And you can do that, and it's kind of satisfying, and you can kind of blow the buildings up, and they're kind of basic in a very basic way, but they do blow up. And, there's big stompy sounds, and it's a little bit more than I expected from this, but it's certainly, if a little bit more thought had been put into how it played, I think this could have been a really decent title in that kind of monster kind of game idea that we played. And we played an Epix one that was kind of monsters in the city, kind of like that.
Yeah, we did. I can't remember what it was called, though.
But as is the usual way, the game is kept to a relative, sort of the game design and everything is kept to a relative minimum effort in terms of look and feel and design. So you end up just walking and smashing and eating and so on and so on. Okay, and then maybe that's all there is. The music here is not very good. The sounds are better with some kind of half-decent smash sounds, that really funny sort of squeak when you grab people, which still made me laugh every time I did it. Yeah. And on the whole, it's a game that lacks a professional polish of almost every kind. And this should have been a budget game because of that, really. This has got budget game written all over it. And had it been a budget game, I'd have given it a lot more kudos at full price. For a game based on a 10p pack of sweets, which it clearly shows you at the start, I don't know if that's a bit of a slap. You could have bought a lot of Chewits for the amount you'd have paid for this game, in all fairness. And it's a multi-load as well. At least it seemed to be a multi-load in the version we had. I'm guessing it's a multi-load. But I don't know. There's something weirdly enjoyable about this game. There's a germ of an idea in there that kind of almost works in a similar way to we've seen Beam Software do with other titles. It's not quite fully fleshed out. It's not quite there. The graphics aren't quite realized well. The sound's kind of half in. The gameplay logic is kind of almost there, but there's enough of it for you to walk, stomp, smash, grab, and just mindlessly just eat people. And the only killer really for that is that $9.99, it's a lot of money to pay for doing that. But I don't know, if you kind of go with it, there's kind of weird fun to be had with Muncher. It's really stupid, I know, but I just found myself wandering along, smashing stuff in. It's quite tricky in places. You're just getting along, keeping on going onto the city. There's quite a lot to go at as well. And just once I'd got into the controls, jumping on buildings, eating people, gaining more health, losing a bit healthier. It's really mindless. It's really dumb, but it's kind of, it knows that. I think it's safe to say that this is no one's gone into town to try and write a 60-page manual for this. It's dumb, stupid, idiotic fun and not even produced very well. Does it deserve 71%? No. If it was $2.99 or $1.99, it probably would have. So it's down in the lower price bracket, really. And that would have given it the cheapness that it would have perhaps connoted. But I couldn't help but finding myself just finding it kind of entertaining. I don't know why. Maybe it says something about me. Maybe I was exhausted at the end of the day. But I actually found myself quite liking it in its own kind of crazy, stupid way. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in agreement. It's a strange old thing. The weird old thing this is. Yeah. Not what I was expecting. I'll come to what I was expecting. But and I do wonder who outside of the UK, were Chewits outside of the UK? Did other countries have Chewits?
I don't think so. I don't know.
That seemed a very British thing. I don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe everyone never knows Chewits. I don't know. Obviously, I know the UK, but it just seemed a very UK chewy sweet.
The advert certainly felt like it, maybe, but
yeah, who knows? Anyway, this is an odd scrolling version of Rampage, where, as you say, you play a pretty well realized and large T-Rex style monster. Now, Beam do this sort of thing because they did Street Hustle, didn't they?
Yeah, I was going to say Street Hustle was a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and Beam did Fist 2 and all those kind of things, Saga Yojimbo. So those kind of scrolling things, they kind of do that. And but they certainly put me in the mold of Street Hustle with those big chunky sprites.
Yeah, totally.
And stuff. The controls, they said they're a little slow. The background graphics are a bit patchy, but like you, I quite enjoyed picking up people and eating them and smashing helicopters and jumping on tanks. Yeah. There was a cathartic feeling of enjoyment here that was just like, I'm just a massive monster. Monster movie game, by the way, was the Epix one. I was less a fan, as you noted, of the scrolling, which needs you to be so close to the board before it kicks in. Why do so many games do that? Moan about it all the time.
Silly.
Keep you central. It's not brilliant, this, but it's not terrible. And I was expecting, because I didn't look what it's going to be. I was expecting a knockoff Pac-Man.
Yeah, with a name like Muncher. Yeah, totally.
So I was thinking, because there's loads of early Pac-Man derivatives called Muncher or Munchman and things like that. So I was expecting that. So the Muncher is a really weird name for this. Why? Because that's not the name of the Chewits dinosaur.
Or maybe it is.
Or maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know. But got to play the Chewits monster for a while. So, passable, a bit bland, but I did like the main sprite. I did like knocking down buildings. It's a bit weird how the buildings fell down like crates, like just knock a bit out and then just like chunk, 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 you'd knock layers out. But I'd climbing on buildings and smacking stuff, and there's some nice animation at times, and it's not terribly slow. I thought, it's all right. How simplistic was that title screen, though? That title screen's weird. I'm not even sure, was this ever released?
I don't.
Was it not? Was it finished?
It was in Zap, so was it? I don't know about it being finished. But with a license that attached to it, maybe. I mean, Gremlin must have hoid the license in from somewhere. Goodness knows how. But...
God knows how. That's because the loading screen's really good, digitized or not, but it's a really good loading screen. And then you get that title screen. It's like you've not even centered it in 3 blocks of color.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, I think they were hoping that people just press the fire button, just skip past that. It doesn't matter.
It's like I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, what? It's blue, green, pink, and the green bit's not. Oh, good Lord.
It's as basic as it gets, but you know what? They had no more room for graphics or something.
And like it says monster.
No,
that's why I don't think it's finished or released or anything. Because I'm not aware of this, and I've never heard anyone mention it. So I don't know. No. It's a weird one. According to Moby Games, this was also known as T-Rex, spelled W-R-E-C-K-S, and the Muncher eats Chewits, but not monster. Not monster.
It's weird. It's just weird that somebody did that.
It is weird, but it's not without its fun. It's not without its bit of enjoyability.
That's the thing. It's one of those stupid games, and we've had a few of them over the time of this podcast where it's just like, you know what? If you just let go, you've got to let go a little bit.
If you just go with the fact that you're a massive Chewit-eating monster
and the scale is pretty impressive in this. That dinosaur's a massive old sprite. It's not badly designed. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
It's not blocky. It's kind of rounded. It's huge, really. And you're jumping about, no problem.
And despite the fact that the people are little and things like that, they're quite well animated as well. When they stop and shoot at you and running around and stuff. And like I said, picking them up and eating them never get old. Jumping at stuff.
It made me laugh, that little scream they make. Ah! It's just stupid stuff like that. I was like, you know what? Because the advert was like that, wasn't it?
Yes.
Dinosaur in the advert for Chewits. He climbs over whatever it was. I think he's in London, and he grabs somebody and he eats them, and and stuff like that. And it's obviously leaning into the whole Godzilla type notion, but it's good. Was the just on the sort of concept, because I always thought the advert, the fake advert, maybe Chewits were known elsewhere because that advert in RoboCop, the car one where you have the dinosaur, don't you? Stomping the 6000 SUX,
he's like
with his eyes, yeah.
I always wondered if that was a Chewits pastiche. So maybe they were
probably
known
a pastiche
elsewhere.
on RoboCop, maybe, because I think that would have come earlier than that. But
maybe, I don't know. Anyway, there you go. There's the Muncher. It's not a Pac-Man ripoff. It is a very strange Chewits-based game where you eat people as a giant.
Don't expect a lot from that title screen because there's not much there.
No, when that first booted, I was like, "Is this crashed?"
Yeah, I mean that's just text on a screen with some characters, space actually inverted space graphics as well to give color blocks. It's like wow, a demo weird. It ain't.
It's a demo of what not to do. But the weird thing is like they've designed their own font.
Yeah, they've gone to the effort of that, but I think they've probably left that to last.
Probably. Anyway, there we go. That's it. That's your last game for this week. We've looked at 6 games. We've looked at, what have we actually looked at this week? We looked at Forgotten Worlds, controllingly disappointing.
I've already forgotten about it.
Yeah, Las Vegas Casino, which...
It's not in Las Vegas.
No, Power Assault Course, which Waggle Kickstart.
Same thing over and over again.
Yeah, Xenon.
Go to the 16-bit version and just don't pretend the 8-bit one doesn't exist.
Yeah, Rockstar Ate My Hamster. A bit dated now, not really dated time of day. Yeah. And finally, the oddness of the Muncher, which is probably the pick of the week.
That's crazy that the Muncher is the pick of the week on top of Forgotten Worlds.
I had more fun with the Muncher than I did with Forgotten Worlds. But
I did, because I didn't. Every time I turned right, I didn't rotate, so that was always good.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, there we go. We'll wrap up June next week. There's only 12 games this month. We've got another 6 coming next week. Those games are Speedball. So we're looking at the cover game.
Brothers one.
Then we've got Titan, which was the crapvert we looked at. Yeah, we've got the real Ghostbusters.
That doesn't look bad, but we'll see.
We'll see. Octoplex, no idea. Danger Freak, and finally the. I think it looks a bit Bard's Taily, this Hillsfar.
Right to your street, that one.
Probably. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. That's it. That's your week. Well, going to have some Chewits. I really want some Chewits now.
You can't get them anymore. They don't make them anymore, do they?
No. So if you did find some, they'd be well out of date.
No, exactly. Now, I only discovered the other day that red bounties have stopped being made. They don't make them anymore. Yeah,
can you actually still get biscuit Yorkies?
I don't believe so, although I've not seen any.
But they were the best. Biscuit Yorkies were the best.
Red bounties definitely withdrawn. They no longer exist. They're done.
No dark bounty.
They were the best ones. No, they were the best ones.
Dark chocolate bounty, yeah. They were the best ones.
But they're gone. They're right. They are no more.
And yet they still make Turkish Delight.
It's a mystery, isn't it, that we'll never figure out. I mean, I do like Turkish Delight, but not that kind of Turkish Delight.
I like Turkish Delight, not that kind of Turkish Delight.
No, because there's all different
types. What kind of Turkish Delight you're talking about? That kind of Turkish Delight.
There's lots of different types of Turkish Delight. Did you know that? It's like loads of different variations. I'm talking about
fried Turkish Delight, which is not anything to do with Turkish Delight.
Oh, see, that's full of Eastern promise.
It's full of summing. There we go. I think we need to wrap this podcast up and let you go about the rest of your day or evening or wherever it is you're listening to it. As ever, if you want to support the podcast, you can do that. You can still do it. The Patreon is still there. You can go to patreon.com/Zapped to the Past for, it's not a price of beer anymore. It's nowhere near the price of a pint of beer, mostly. No, you can sort of sign up and come join us on the Discord, get the episodes early and all that kind of stuff. Or you could just chuck us a quid and just get our eternal thanks. That would be cool. Or you can buy us a coffee at kofi.com or kofi./to-the-past. Whatever it is, just put Ko-fi Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. You can even buy t-shirts. And I've got one, and it's very good quality, and it looks very nice. It is. It's very good quality.
It's exceptionally good.
Yeah, so if you want to go there, zappedtothepast.shop and buy a t-shirt. Do so if you want. So I have been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past. We will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.